I am recording on my end now. We're going to get that going. Let me also get the screen capture caught up. We can. I not share my screen to the commentary booth channel. Okay. Let me just grab Sam.
Samantha, sorry, we might need some help on that.
Oh, Sam, you're already in the call with us here. Yes, I do not have the perms to screen share in the commentary channel. If you just grant me those very quickly, we'll get back to it then. Um, in case that I imagine since we had a sudden crash there, we're going to just stitch two VODs together. In case we don't, and this ends up being uploaded separately, reintroduction. Hello, everybody. Second half of the Inputs 4 commentary coming through here. We are going to jump in just kind of suddenly into the middle of it because we had a small technical issue causing the previous issue, probably the previous side to end. Good to go to screen share. Let me just do this. Go live. Well, should be able to see the map. You all watching,
yes.
everyone watching through the Discord stream, you were going to see the entire Chrome window. It's slightly zoomed in on the OBS capture, so it's slightly less egregious in that regard.
You can hit F11 and it will.
Yes, just full screen it. Yes. Just readjust the OBS window accordingly. I can select the right layer. Come on, OBS. Come on, OBS. Resize. And we're good. Okay. Everything's good there now. Beautiful. We are all caught up on this end. Let us finish Fall 44 then. Say our goodbyes, Captain Meme, and then we will continue on to the next turn. Actually, we don't need to rush this too bad because we are caught up. The only thing that's after this now to analyze is builds, but there's not too much analysis to go in there, so we have a bit of time to finish discussing this turn.
All right. In that case, I might head off a little sooner, straight away. But I will say my favorite to win right now is probably Shoshone, followed by some combination of Mapuche, Safavids, and Austria. Those are the bets that I'm gonna make.
I think I have to agree here. I'm really there's not any particular colonial that I think is justifiably doing well enough across the board to really get over that hump and get the last few centers that they need. I imagine that we're going to see a regional winner of this game.
I think the only colonial really contesting that is England because England's doing well in India. They're doing pretty well in the Americas. North America has been stalemated for a while, but the Caribbean's been going pretty nicely. So I think that the only real potential colonial power doing significantly well would probably be England.
Very fair indeed. All right, in that case then, everyone please give a huge thank you to Captain Meme for joining us for the commentary and taking time out of their Saturday to be here and join us.
All right, you're very welcome. I hope the rest of the commentary goes well.
Thank you indeed. Keep an eye on the commentary specific channel. That's where we're going to end up organizing the raw footage and getting everything aligned. We'll figure out what's getting uploaded where, if we need to stitch the two VODs together, all of that good stuff. But that's something that we will figure out after the game. Thank you very much.
Understood. All right, see you.
See ya. Apologies again.
Bye.
Apologies again that I slept in just long enough to not catch that first recording session. My mistake.
It's fine. But speaking of Meme leaving, I think now's also a great time for me to depart. So I will see you all in a little bit.
Indeed. Go get yourself some lunch.
Good.
Those just
Yes, food is yummy.
Food is indeed good. I highly recommend. For those who are just rejoining us here in the call, we were supposed to have a break as well in order to get everything situated. However, we ended up commentating through the break because we had a lot of really interesting points that we needed to make in the first half of the game. Between that and the first half of the game actually ending earlier than anticipated, we ended up just talking through the entirety of the break. So Downpour is going to go and take their break now. I'm taking over for recording duties. And while I'm here, I am joined by my fellow sports.
Hello, hello.
Yes, this is why there's a meme going on. By the way, with people having sports in their username. Both myself and Sports Who Zombie here are on the commentary team, and so then the entire commentary team became sports, and then the GM team joined in, and it is fantastic.
Mhm.
All right, everything seems to be looking good here, and we're going along. Let's get back into what we were discussing. Let me catch you up, Sports View. Have you been following along with the game at all? Have you been like looking at the maps while we've been
Not
going
in
through?
particular. I got a little busy this morning.
That's all right. We'll give you a little bit of a catch up then while we recap and continue going through Fall Moose 1644 here. For the most part, the Colonials have been at each other's throats. There has not been a solid Colonial alliance that has stuck for the entire game so far. And that has allowed a lot of the regional powers to get a hold of the power that they may need in order to try and catapult through. There are, that being said, though, there's not any particular region that's super close to winning at the moment. There's not any that are very obviously storming ahead, but we've only played 3 years, so there's plenty of time left for them to compound their advantage and get everything moving. Excuse me.
Oh, for sure.
We've had
Just trying to look to see if there's anything on the map that catches my eye in particular, but I don't think I see anything.
there are a couple of
I mean,
interesting
Spanish
things.
Edo is fun.
Sorry, one more time.
Spanish Edo.
Yeah, we all had a very very visceral reaction to seeing this on the table. It was very good to see.
C dot take dot.
C dot,
Love
take
to see
dot.
it.
All right, so what I'm going to do here very quickly is I'm actually just going to start us over on the other side, and we're gonna catch up with the side that we did not cover before the technical issue caused us to switch over recording suddenly there. We're going to discuss North and South America. If we still have time, we'll look at the rest of the world a little bit more in depth before moving on to the spring moves. Let's start with Mapuche because Mapuche has a very strong start looking into everything at the current moment. And it looks like they're going to continue to put the pressure on and succeed in getting into some of these Guarani centers.
Yep, they get into. That looks like they get into Mbia here.
They're going to
Dislodge, dislodge comms, so they keep that. Spain doesn't stop them in Huarpe, and instead Spain decides to dot Aymara.
we had
So
Downpour pointed out that this is probably what was going to happen with the Spanish fleet here, though Mapuche is almost certainly breathing a nice sigh of relief for that. I want to point out real quick that Guarani didn't decide to do anything with this Argentine basic unit, instead just taking it out to South Atlantic Ocean. I wonder what their intention was with that. Perhaps they just already knew that the situation wasn't looking so great for them and they just wanted to try something else, but I feel like there was something productive they could have done with this unit had they tried something. For example, if they had predicted that Mapuche attempt to cover Islas Malvinas in this situation, which they did, they could have potentially moved Argentine Basin into Gulf of St. George and put a lot of pressure on some of these Mapuche centers on this coast.
yeah, they could have, but then Mapuche just builds like 2 this phase already, possibly
true.
3, depending on what happened in Southeast Asia. So they just build in Tukapo and then that unit does nothing. I think Guarani going to South Atlantic Ocean gives them a lot more opportunities to try and dot something random.
They could try and
Based on
mess.
the rest of the moves around the board, I think it's unlikely they'll dot something at random, but
Yeah,
one last ditch effort to try and survive.
most of the South Atlantic centers seem to be at the very least reasonably covered here. But again, last ditch effort. They've lost Sao Paulo here. They're not gaining anything against Mapuche. It's understandable to be making that effort. Mapuche, how much is this going to put Mapuche up this year? Because they're going +2 and they're not losing columns. So just +2 from the looks of it. That's certainly not bad.
+2 unless something in Southeast Asia happens,
Uh,
which I don't think anything
no,
happens.
nothing new as far as developments went in that. scrolling up, Aymara is also getting a piece of this pie, and they are also, I believe they only get Arroyo here. Yeah, that's the only dot that they're going to get so far, but they also ended up working out in their favor as far as their moves here. They end up blocking Portugal out of Nakuo while also still holding Madeira from the
I
Spanish
was hoping
offense.
to stop into Southeast Asia, but
Sorry?
Mapuche and Netherlands take Flores and Timor from Portugal, so they do go +3.
Yes, that's right. That is
Great.
this turn. We were discussing that a moment ago.
Yes.
Okay. So Mapuche is +3. That's very good for Mapuche then.
Yeah. Aymara, looks like they're getting sandwiched in between everyone now.
Yeah, Aymara and Spain have been doing this back and forth war for a while now, but Aymara is holding off defensively quite well. Spain has not made any meaningful ground here. In fact, they had to cover Galapagos here. They did, but it means that this whole train of the Spanish fleets just does not result in anything productive happening.
Yeah, and Aymara loses a guess here between bouncing Quechua or support holding Exura,
Mhm.
which is a bit unfortunate for Aymara here.
Indeed. I don't think Aymara is going to do too hot, but they're living. They had a really poor start, and they are still living and still growing, so gotta give respect to them for playing that way.
For sure.
Netherlands is continuing to try and clean up the area that we have up here. Barbados and New Courland are kissing. That's so good for them. Spain gets into Caracas, which is nice for them. Poland has been doing quite unfortunately so far here. All right, and the last thing here
They're
is
holding out, but
Poland's holding out, but I do not think they have much left in this game. I really am rooting for them. They stabilized a little bit in Europe, but not a ton. And the final thing is that
no.
England has basically wrested control from the entirety of the Caribbean here and is going to start cleaning up these dots very effectively. I think Bahamas to Florida current was a bit of a mistake, considering that they looks like supported it with Baracoa. It might have been trying to. Oh, that was
So
probably.
Barakova's trying to support Bahamas Channel
But
into Windward Passage, I bet.
and just
It doesn't matter
misordered.
because Spain leaves Windward Passage, so
Yeah,
I think this is a misorder because Bahamas Channel.
it certainly looks like it. It works out in their favor at least, but that is unfortunate.
Yep.
Yeah, England is cleaning up here, and it looks like
Yeah,
they even
+3 in the Caribbean, plus Mexico City.
yep, that they're gonna just start to dot up Spain. England may be the force to look out for as far as the colonial powers going through. It even seems that
For
they
sure, for sure.
even seems that they are not getting any sort of pressure from you because you is deciding to back away. Francis is trying to deal
Yeah,
with
moving towards France.
yeah, France is trying to deal a bit more with this Netherlands unit in Erie and making sure that they have everything covered. Yeah. Let's see here. The results of this
France
though.
and England seem to have made up.
Yeah, England was actually attacking France a lot earlier in the game, though it now seems that they're back on side with one another, at least for the time being.
Yeah.
I would like to point out here
As
that
England, you'd love to have Port Royal instead of France. Just
true.
control the entire coastline.
Just really deny French fleets from being able to do anything. Everything seems to line up here fairly well for France and England, though. Seems most things went their way. France gets into
Yeah,
Nagasaki
pretty slow
here.
French progress against Inuit, though.
Yeah, it's slow, but it is progress. Speaking of, Inuits are making work going in towards Athabasca alongside the help of Uchishone. Uchishone actually gets a lot out of this bargain. They're going to go +2, getting Chakotay and Susina here. Very nice for them.
Yep.
Ending up here. A lot of this seems to be going fairly well for those in power. I wish I could just zoom out slightly with Chrome here. A lot of things seem to be going fairly well for those that were in power. Seem to be starting to snowball their advantage. England and France are making up and are trying to make the best out of the situation they have, pushing against Netherlands and Spain. Ute and Inuit are trying to make it work, though it seems Ute Shoshone is going to be the largest benefactor of that cooperation. I'm curious.
Yeah, I don't see Inuit getting a lot more than Chippewa and maybe Tachone on the Alaskan coast there, but I think
Yeah,
Ute's gonna be the main benefactor of this.
good for Ute indeed. It probably just means that with these armies, Ute's just going to keep pushing forward and press advantage against Inuit, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how France is going to be positioned going into the future. It seems like Ute and England are pretty aligned at the moment, so I wonder if they're about to get sandwiched this spring.
It certainly seems like it. I'll quickly go over everything else so that you're able to catch up along. There is a lot of war fronts happening over in Europe. Austria and France are just tiptoeing around each other. Sweden and Poland are fighting over their coastline. A lot of the same sort of skirmishes that you would expect at this point of the game. There have been some really interesting developments with Safavid and Russia, which we are seeing here. Though we're going to see a bit more of that as we develop forward. Moves are coming through now, though, so Zombie, if it's all right with you, since we have already covered the other half of the map, I think we should move along to builds.
Let's do it.
All right, let me get that pulled up.
Oh, I have Spring Start download, not builds. Let's download builds really quick.
I've just got a ping from King of Prussia that says, "I'm not coping, I swear." Sure, buddy. Sure. All right, we're going to take a look at the builds map first. It's going to be a very quick look over, and everything's going to get resolved from there. Take a look at these builds then, shall we? Wants to let me zoom in. There we are. Yeah, a ton of fleets here from Mapuche. Makes sense. They have just about cleaned up most of the armies they're going to need. They might want a little bit here. But they can like move a quite to Huarpe to make sure that this isn't significant pressure. Ronnie's just about coming off the board.
Yep.
Netherlands just completely getting out of the Caribbean. They've lost it and accepting their fate. It's unfortunate. Same with North America here. They've gotten completely cleaned up. Really unfortunate year for the Netherlands. They were doing fairly well early on. I was rooting for them, but it seemed it did.
Yeah, they like doubled year one, and now they've gone -5.
Yeah, it did not pay out in their favor. You getting some good builds here. As I imagine, they're gonna try and just continue to push the advantage. Keep pushing more against Athabasca. Turn that against Inuit. Perhaps turn that against France and England. Just keep on building and growing. I think that they stand a very good chance if they keep that up.
Yep. Army Gnome can only go anti-Athabasca. I'm curious to see what England does with Jamestown, because that can only be anti-French, surely, unless it gets convoyed.
Pretty largely so. England did get a fair amount of builds this turn, so perhaps they were just building there. I imagine they're going to try and justify to France, oh, I just built there because I had no better builds, because there wasn't much any other place to build. And then they'll just turn that and pivot it against France. It very well could happen.
If you're France, you're mad about Army Jamestown, you're very happy to not see Army Portland.
Indeed. I think ultimately, the same thing's gonna happen that happens to a lot of the England-France alliances. That being that France takes the brunt of most of the problem, and England is just going to stab France when it becomes opportune, when the opportunity arrives.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back over at Europe here, Christiania. Sweden ended up coring Christiania over the course of the game. I don't hate it, because Christiania is a place where they can build fleets and actively be productive with it. As you can see, they have a bit of a logjam going on with how many fleets they have in the Baltic area. And while
this is a lot of fleets.
They're making
too many fleets, in my opinion.
They're making progress, but even with how many fleets it is not near enough progress for it to really make a difference, which is not good for them.
Yeah, I mean, they have Kiel guaranteed, so we'll see if they can start pushing Kiel, Lubeck, Bremen, Brandenburg, that area, but
we'll have to
over
see.
in Poland, it looks like it's slow progress.
Indeed. Austria Still looking like they're coming out on top. I'm surprised Austria didn't get any builds that year. I thought Austria would have at least gotten one. Oh, suppose not.
What happened?
They had Strasbourg, and then France retook it,
They
but they
lose
retook
Krakow,
Dijon.
gains Dijon.
Oh yeah, and lost Krakow. That's it.
Yeah,
Forgot
so
they
they
were.
go even.
Forgot they were in Krakow at all. It was a weird. They just kind of walked into it last year. Benefits for them, but didn't end up holding it, of course.
Yeah.
Most we're at the point where we're not going to see a ton of builds or disbands in either case, so we're mostly just catching up on seeing things. So I doubt we'll see anything too meaningful. Fleet Jacob Ford is something I like. Poland trying to fight back a bit more against the Portuguese aggression in this area. Though it truly is England who is dominating the region as far as West Africa is starting to come around. They've turned their one unit into four, and they are applying a fair amount of pressure in the rest of the region. They're going to be putting a lot. I imagine they're going to try and take Timbuktu and Ulada this turn, which is going to. I think it's going to work out in their favor, considering that I doubt France and the Ottomans are likely to work together in this region. Both of them just
Yeah, it depends on how the relationships here all work out. They could also go for Niani. Lots of options for the English armies here.
indeed. They certainly have the options at their disposal. Looking right, Abyssinia down but not out. They managed to take Cairo from Ottomans this term, and now Ottomans are the ones really looking on the back foot, despite the fact that they were the ones who were really pushing heavily against Abyssinia there beforehand. All right, speed this along a little bit more. Let's see anything too much more to discuss that seems out of the ordinary. Safavids are building to continue trying to push in against Ottomans from the look of it, also try and defend a bit against what remains of the Portuguese centers over here on the peninsula. Everything seems on board, above board for that. Yeah,
Everything seems fairly normal.
I'm curious to
I'm
see.
curious to see what Ming is going to do with that fleet in Nanjing.
Ooh, Fleet Nanjing. We'll talk about that in a moment. That's their fourth fleet over there, even.
Fourth fleet.
Lots of
Surely
fleets.
it goes to Hokkien to deal with Portugal, right?
Probably. We'll have to see, though. I imagine if that's your plan, you build an army, though. Okay. I want to
We'll see.
quickly address Mughals and England here. Portugal's getting pushed out of the peninsula, but England and Mughals are both still trying to build from the situation. There's a bit of discussion in the chat here about trying to guess who's going to break through and get through and claim the peninsula first. In the chat
I
here.
mean, Mughals is guaranteed Hyderabad here.
Yes, indeed. England does not have near enough units to try and put defenses on that. It makes me wonder why
Yeah,
they
I
built
think England's
fleet.
in trouble here in India.
Makes me wonder why they built a fleet there if they're trying to secure what they have and potentially even grow further.
Yeah, I think double army might have been better. I think what they're trying to do is support hold Andhra coast. If I had to guess.
Perhaps it makes a fair amount of sense,
Because
but
otherwise I don't see a reason to build a fleet there.
I suppose so. All right. Sorry, I just want to quickly scan that the rest of the builds. Yep, Toku's builds are going to deal with Edo coming over here. The Ming build is interesting. I imagine if they're trying to send it to Hokkien, I guess eventually you want to push that out, push south with it, I guess. We'll have to see how they're planning to play that out. And that's all the builds and disbands we're seeing in the area. Another ping here. Another ping here from King of Prussia.
Or Ajuran.
King of Prussia has been sending me a lot of messages this game. Very much respected. I have not been checking the voids near as much as I probably should. They're just talking about England's trying to apologize, and Netherlands are like, no, I do not believe you. Do not believe you. All right. we're moving on to spring moves here now. Let's get these open and see what we're looking at. I'm sure there will be a fair amount because this turn is pretty much the exact halfway point of the game. As we intend to try and do most of the time, we will be playing for 7 years total. That was just the end of year 3 that we were counting, and now we are looking over at year 4. So this is the halfway point here at the end of this turn. Where should we begin here? I kind of want to begin where I'm seeing a lot of circles, so I address it once and not talk about it too much thereafter. A lot of piecing out happening on this border here between these powers. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that. I mean, I'm sure Russia is happy because it's a lot less pressure they're facing in their region, minus England up there.
Safavid stabs Ottomans here is why there's a bunch of circles.
It's very fair. I don't know if it's a stab because Safavid was already applying a fair amount of pressure. So it might be. The situation, but
looks like it might just be a continued attack because they have Baghdad already, but that's a whole lot of armies moving.
The situation as we have seen it has
west
been
instead of north.
It's been interesting between Russia, Safavids, and Ottomans. There's a lot that we have not really understood as far as who's on whose side these powers, but Safavids once again seem to be coming out on top of it largely. I haven't made a ton progress here, but Portugal's just kind of
Staff's position here.
I would have rather that they had actively continued to make a push against Russia rather than piecing out, because I would really like to see Safavid have these dots and not someone like England who's just coming in with one rogue fleet and is trying to contest them now. But scrolling onto the right, Russia has attempted to make some sort of peace with Ming, and maybe this is just neither of them want to press the advantage. Because Ming and Qing are still working together, and Russia is still fighting the both of them. That's what's going on here in Mongolia, but Russia's not pushing the advantage, trying to push into Tumens. I suppose? If I was Russia, I would try and use a Krasnoyarsk and push it forward into Tumens, but perhaps not.
Try and go there. Try and get Mughals on side to maybe get Turfan.
I also want to point out, actually, Krasnoyarsk didn't support hold Karakorum. Karakorum supported hold Krasnoyarsk, but Krasnoyarsk just held itself, which means if Ming had tried for Karakorum this turn, they would have got in. I'm
Classic blitz diplomacy.
Classic. Just once again,
I hate the Qing move, Hailan Pao moving to Amur here. I get what it's trying to do here, but
yeah,
it's just gonna move back to cover the dot when you take Kikihar, so like, why bother?
That's not particularly great for them.
Like, why not just move Yakutsk to Amur? If they move to Buryatia, like, whatever, you could cover it still.
Right. Oh, they're even retreating out of Shengjing. Like, if you're trying to pop the Russian unit, don't give it an option to retreat into multiples of your centers. Seems like it's asking for trouble at this point.
Yeah.
Over here, Inuit is still continuing to get pushed out, though it seems Tokugawa is also starting to divert their pressure into pushing against Qing a little bit more. All of this gets cleaned up, which makes sense. Toku's trying to apply their pressure and keep growing. So it does make me curious then why they're walking out of Pyongyang. Okay. That's interesting. All of these powers just doing a shuffle down. I wonder.
I don't understand any of this, but that's okay.
I'm most confused by Ming. What is Ming getting? What is Ming gonna benefit out of doing this with their unit? Like they're working with Qing, sure. But what
They're
are
also
they
working with Toku to pop the Okinawa fleet, which makes no sense.
Very intriguing is about all I'm add to this situation. Nanjing does go to Hokkien, but they don't end up getting any pressure on Macau or Hainan. It's 2-on-2 there, so it just ends up staying.
It looks like Spain's helping, so they'll get one of those 2 dots this turn.
Indeed. It looks like Ayutthaya tried to support Ming into themselves, which is funny, I suppose. Yeah, I'm really not sure where Ming is trying to go from here. Where are Ming's future dots coming from? It's been a question I've been asking all game. They actively walked out of centers in year 2 and had all of us confused. I'm not sure where Ming is intending to get more dots and grow. Like they want Macau and Hainan, and they're trying to put a little bit of pressure here. Sort of, not really. They're not even trying for Okinawa or any of these other Tokugawa centers. I'm not sure where they intend to go.
Yeah, like once the Portuguese colony is gone, I don't see where their next dots are based off of the moves this phase.
Right.
They're gonna have to stab someone if they want dots. I don't see who it is.
Yeah, they're not really moving to position themselves greatly against any of their other neighbors. Very, very curious indeed. All right, let's cover down south here. I'm just gonna move down here, first and foremost. As was somewhat predicted beforehand, Mapuche has not applied. Mapuche has basically left themselves to just one fleet in this Oceania region, which puts these centers of theirs in a very precarious position. Netherlands ends up training, but it ends up working out for them. I think it's going to result in Mapuche just
That's a
getting.
solid +3 dots from the Dutch right here.
Yeah, Mapuche's just going to get 3 and outed right here, right now, from the looks of it, because that's an Indian Ocean unit coming in down here to the Australian Bight. That's going to try and tap for Rook. They've already got Gulmarian. They're going to try and force Timur out. Yeah, not looking good for us Mapuche fans at the moment. Uh-oh, Raggy.
Except for the Dutch losing other dots in the other side of the East Indies here. Sumatra support holding a moving fleet. You'll love to see it. Ayutthaya just walks into 2 and Andhra Coast here, so
yeah,
looking really good for Ayutthaya.
It's been a bit of a duality here. Spain opting to try and just retreat into Sulu Sea. I guess they are really quite scared of Ayutthaya trying to push in. It makes sense. They have moved fairly aggressively towards Ayutthaya, but I feel like Spain really needs to be applying a bit more pressure on the region right now. Because right now they haven't. They had a good position against Netherlands. Like they had the dots against Manado and Makassar. So if they're not going to be taking those dots from the Netherlands, but they still intend to tap Sambas, it's kind of the same deal. Where are you tending to go? If you're not going.
I think they're starting to get worried about some Ming and Tokugawa fleets attacking the Philippines, so they're piecing out the Netherlands.
I mean, that makes some amount of sense. But it's just more defensive
they're not fighting
than
in
anything.
South America, so I think they're at peace.
Here's how I see it. Tokugawa could have moved to Philippines. Ming could have moved to Luzon straight. Either of those would have been bad, yes. And obviously, I'm saying this in foresight, knowing that neither of those did happen. However, with this unit in celibacy, and even potentially this unit in Cotabato, if you truly trusted Ayutthaya, or no, you have this unit Banjarmasin that did nothing. You could have contested Manado, Makassar, Batavia, a couple of other centers perhaps even. And instead of now just sitting there with the unit and defensively protecting the Philippines, you could have had builds in the Philippines and used those to defend against additional pressure. It's a lot of passive play, and it doesn't really help in return any of your investment, especially when we already know that Spain is really struggling in North America at the moment.
Yeah, I think you just have to dot Manado here if you're Spain.
I think I have to agree with that. Ayutthaya is being a very good benefactor of all of this go. As you said, they're getting Sumatra and Sambas just completely for free. They also got Mughals to support them into Andhra Coast, which means now they might stand to gain benefits within the Indian Peninsula here. Very nice for Ayutthaya here.
Yeah, India is all sorts of bad for England right now.
It is not looking pleasant, that's for sure. They try.
Lose Hyderabad, lose Raja.
Mm-hmm.
The fleet that they just built in Masu gets pinned down.
Yeah, and it looks like they may even be able to attempt Bellari.
Can't even.
No, not quite.
They can take coach in this phase, but they'll lose Madurai,
Yeah, England is.
and then they keep everything else, I think.
Yeah, England has a lot of units here, but
No, they
not.
lose Masu this phase as well,
The problem is that if
I
I feel like
think.
their units are in the wrong places. All of these armies are not defending against Mughals, and rather they're letting Mughals just completely push in against them. Good work from the Mughals here. It even allows me to discount the fact that they are once again core to center they already own. I'm not even going to fault them for that. Good meme. You're doing well.
Yeah, if you trust Ming, there's not really much else to do, so, like, holding and coring, basically the same thing for that unit.
Might as well, I suppose. Alright, already talked about all of these and how Russia's doing. Let's just move down to south of Africa then. Sure enough, Ajaran is making the pressure
Ajaran
to
walks
move.
into a center.
Yep, Ajaran is making the pressure to move against Portugal here. They're going to get Bera here. It also looks like that means they are going to get Moravi in the fall. Portugal opts to self-bounce over the territory they don't own. Is that a misorder of some kind? I wonder if it's a misorder. I do not have. I can't make sense of that otherwise.
Yeah, that bounce is not good for Portugal.
It's certainly not pleasant for them. France is still hanging on, but Azeron looking very nice trying to push in. It's going to take a while for them to pivot a lot of these units down south, but with just what, 2, 3 units, they have immediately completely crippled the entire Portuguese defense down here. Very solidly making progress for them.
Yeah, it's not completely crippled here. Burundi is a little bit vulnerable here,
Mm.
but Ajaran's brought Banyoro down, piecing out Ajaran, or piecing out Abyssinia, it looks like. Or at
Indeed.
least, like, being friendly with Abyssinia.
Yeah, and they might lose Azande
Uh,
because of it, but
Benguela moved to Matamba so that could cover Barotes,
mm,
but you could get an army into Makua now if you're Ajaran, and Portugal has to decide whether they want to cut that, cover Barotes, or dislodge Bera. It's like not
yeah,
great.
not good defensively for Portugal. Great job though, Ajaran to push ahead. I'm sorry, I have just seen. Ah, surely this is for the bit, right? Surely, surely.
From Congo, yes, absolutely, just for the bit.
Well, surely it's for the bit
What's
from Netherlands
incredible
as
is they
well.
only lose Soyo right now.
At the moment, because Portugal ends up tapping Lopez Bay and they get lucky in that regard to protect Mabenza, but
Yeah.
Congo's not looking too great. I understand the meaning from them, but England and Netherlands just kind of stalling out a little bit here. I don't know how I feel about that. Not particularly well.
What is going on here?
Oh, yeah, that's Thunderdome, baby. Poland attempts to.
England walks into two centers at the price of maybe losing Mali to Poland, but like
Maybe? It certainly looks like Poland moved to Fulani to try and put pressure on Mali, but they also have a lot of pressure coming in from Portugal still. Portugal has 3 units on Geba, so they have to make sure that they're still going to cover their centers and be prepared for that.
yeah, Gaba's not an SE though. Jacob Fort's the SE there, so
It isn't, but
Poland's actually fine here.
if Portugal gets into Geba, though, then they'll have 2 on Jacob Fort and can push on that in the Dockaroo. I'm a little surprised that they moved out of Senegal estuary and didn't put Sierra Leone Rise into the Gambia. A little surprised about that decision.
Yeah, maybe they thought that Poland would cover St. Louis, so they went for a different option.
Maybe? But even just saying in Senegal estuary, then you have 2 on Dockaroo, and you're really forcing Poland to play heavily defensively.
Yeah, a whole lot of strange stuff going on here, but
Ultimately, though,
that's alright.
ultimately ends up coalescing in. It looks like England is still gaining in the region, which makes sense, I suppose. England's been doing quite well in the
Yep.
area and has really been able to leverage everyone else to get them to do what they want. Like they got Poland is trying to support them against people. The Ottomans are trying to support them against people. They're making gains, and I think that they are going to continue to apply that pressure and come out on top in this region.
Yeah. As England, you're kind of sad that there's no time to core any of these provinces because it's blitz. You just have to go, go, go.
Mhm.
You'd love to be able to core something in this region to start getting more units there because of how strong of a power base you have, but
Right. I mean, they're coring great
for now, you
archers
just
for
gotta
the
be happy with
memes.
what you got.
They're coring great archer for the memes.
That is true.
Maybe they'll go
They
through
are
with it.
coring now.
Mayhaps. All right. Moving forward a
Yep.
little
In the
bit.
north of Africa,
Portugal is continuing to put the pressure against Spain. I'm still very shocked that they have not put anything down on the actual Iberian
why are you
Peninsula.
coring Tangier?
Yeah, you're already putting pressure against Spain to force them out of Rabat and try and make progress there. Tangier can go and just get Gibraltar this year. I'm not sure what sort of strange agreement that they have going on over there because these Spanish Iberian dots really should have been Portuguese by this point. And instead, Portugal has just
Like,
kind of let them live on that, and I really don't agree with that decision.
why don't you cover Sea of Azores here? Lisbon is free. If Spain doesn't take Lisbon, I'll be very upset.
There
Oh, I've just noticed other moves, but we'll get to that later.
are certainly some other moves going on here. I do it. Yeah, I have to agree. Spain just contested Lisbon this turn. I hadn't even clocked that entirely.
they get Lisbon, but I think Spain's in trouble this phase.
Yeah, Spain's not looking hot, irregardless of how this is going. France has decided to pivot entirely into leaving their front against Austria open, leaving Paris completely open, so they can contest Barcelona this turn, next turn. I'm like, don't get me wrong, C dot, they take dot, and all that. You have the pressure on Barcelona, and if Portugal's not getting Spain's centers there, you might as well come in and try and get them. But there's still a lot of active Austrian pressure in the region, considering they're in Dijon. Like they're actively
Yeah,
moving
this is
against
a
you here.
lot of trouble for France as well.
Like they moved
I
into
think they're losing Ghent this phase.
yeah, they're moving into Strasbourg this turn. They're I think they might yeah they lose Ghent as well to the Netherlands. Gotcha. Slide to the left, slide to the right, back and forth all game with France here. I've been saying this a lot, but especially in a blitz environment, what you need to do foremost beyond anything is commit. Once you have put the pressure on, you need to keep applying that pressure. Because if you back down and the other side doesn't, you've done nothing and allow your opponent to walk in behind you. And that's what we're seeing here between France and Austria this entire game. France has gone back and forth between not caring about Austria at all and very heavily trying to defend against the Austrian threat. And because they're going back and forth so often, Austria just keeps taking more stuff from them.
Yep.
It really is quite unfortunate to see. I don't think France.
Yeah.
I don't think all things said though, I don't think France is in the worst position. Like we're already talking about Portugal struggling elsewhere. We're talking about Netherlands struggling elsewhere. We're talking about Spain struggling elsewhere. France has some solid things going for them. Europe, not necessarily, but they are looking okay elsewhere.
Yeah, it'll depend on what we see in North America, how well France is doing here.
Indeed. I have not even panned over at all, so perhaps I really should be knocking on wood.
No. Uh, nothing moves in Italy, from what I can tell.
It looks like
Uh,
just a whole bunch of hold orders. I
I
think
mean, Gulf of Gabe gets dislodged, but
what does end up happening though
actually, and
is
that's worst.
Austria gets into Split here, and the Ottomans get into
At the cost of
Slavonia.
Slavonia, though.
The good news, though, is at
So
least
Austria's going to lose Pressburg.
well, no, Slavonia can retreat the Pressburg at least. But Ottomans have put 3 units of pressure on it now. I see.
Yeah. And because there's no army in Trieste, the most you could have on it is Pressburg Silesia, and
Indeed.
so
That's unfortunate for Austria
not
there.
looking too great.
Real quick, covering north side here, Sweden is still.
Königsberg, what are you doing?
That's the second turn that Königsberg has scored for what it's worth. And I mean, you could have got into Gdansk this turn and completely destroyed the Gdansk unit if you had just supported yourself in the Gdansk. But
instead, you lose Brandenburg, and your unit gets popped, I believe.
Hey.
Because Netherlands covers Bremen, Sweden walks into Lubeck, Austria walks into Brandenburg.
Exactly. It's a really unfortunate turn for Poland here. They could have even had Warsaw. They could have had Warsaw support themselves in the Gdansk here and at least made some sort of progress of getting. If they got the Swedish army off of their line, they could have at least had some better lines there because then they were only primarily worrying about fleets contesting the centers. Now it's just looking bad.
They could have held something. They could have held one center instead. I think they lose all 5 here.
I believe so. With Sweden and Wilno, Russia and Volhynia.
Everyone here coordinates between Sweden, Russia, and Austria. I think they just could lose everything.
Certainly looks like it. They might be left with just Krakow or just Königsberg, but I think that'll be it.
Yeah, I mean, like Warsaw could like cut Gdansk or something.
There is something very good of note, though. That being that Sweden's forcing themselves into North Sea here. England's getting some pushback on the home isles, and especially since they're really bogged down by everything going on. All of their allies are really bogged down with everything else going on the continent mainland. They don't really have a ton of way to protect North Sea. Like, Edinburgh is lost. Sweden has Edinburgh this year for free.
I think it depends on where English Channel went. Is that English Channel to Ghent?
I believe that is English Channel to Ghent.
Okay, so that'll bounce, which means Southern Bight bounces,
yeah.
Which means
North Sea just gets
bounces. So
retreated
North Sea
then.
could retreat to Edinburgh.
Nonetheless, England,
and they could cover everything.
England not having North Sea is problematic for them. They're going to have to play a whole lot more defense against Sweden now if they are indeed moving in aggressively, especially with England continuing to just move fleets out. Greenland Sea tried to go to North Atlantic. It ended up getting bounced by Madeira plane over here. And they also just put an English fleet over in Russia just to see dot take dot. If England hasn't put a lot of that, doesn't have a lot to offer here for the home defense, and if Sweden is able to continue making growth and getting all of the dots off of Poland, continuing to build Christiania and Trondheim and just apply that fleet pressure onto England, England could lose their capital and be out of the running.
Yeah, England's in a lot of trouble after this phase with how big Sweden's about to get.
I was even about to try and...
the plus side for England, funnily enough, is I think Greenland Sea bounces. There are so many bounces in these oceans, it's crazy.
It does. Let's look at just the oceans in particular. So, South Atlantic 5
Greetings.
Hello, welcome
back, Downpour.
Yeah, sorry to interfere with the flow, but it felt like you were about to get onto something else entirely.
Oh, please, go on ahead. We were just about to talk about...
what did I miss?
You haven't missed a ton. Most of what we've covered seems to be the things that we expected to happen largely. There are a couple of very interesting things. Mm-hmm. Largely, that Safavids and Russia are piecing out a little bit so that they can both focus on Ottomans a bit more, which is really entertaining.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That and...
I not see that one.
Yeah. The other thing of note is that France has walked it back again. But we spent plenty of time discussing on that already, so I don't want to discuss it too much longer.
Yeah, fall moves are out, and we are still 2 continents behind, so...
We have been defined all day, but I would really like to discuss what's happened here. So, Gorani's soul...
It's easy to talk about the moves that succeeded.
Yeah. Gorani's soul fleet...
Gorani got into SAO4.
I really want to bring this
France got
up.
into SAO2.
Guarani's Soul Fleet
England
that's
gets into
just sitting there.
NAO2.
It's just sitting there in South Atlantic. It moves up to Canary Basin, which, you know what? Fair play. There's a lot of really open centers there that you could try and contest and make some progress against. You know who else realized that? England, who tried to
England.
use there from North Atlantic 5. But Portugal, assuming that unit was going to go
Whoa.
out, tries to backfill it, assuming that's going to be the safest place to go, not seeing that it's going to get bounced. Bouncing North Atlantic 4 as well. South Atlantic is even more of a mess with Congo. Congo bouncing with, I believe, Mapuche in South Pacific over here. Yes, indeed.
What is going on in the South Atlantic? This is crazy.
That's a Congo and Mapuche bounce, and England and Mapuche bounce. Oh, England, Mapuche, and Dutch bounce. My mistake. And meanwhile,
The
Guarani
greatest part about this is that Guarani has 2 in here.
Guarani
so
now
Guarani
has
could
the
definitely
most.
go for St. Helena or Cape Coe this phase.
Guarani now has the most units in South Atlantic. They have 2 units in South Atlantic, which is all of their units. That's great.
Yeah.
Oh my
If you're
God.
Mapuche here, you're secretly very happy that everything in the South Pacific bounced because now you could defend Australia.
Yeah, a little bit. I almost wonder if Mapuche was just entirely accepting of the fact that they're going to lose their outposts over here, and that's why they tried to pivot entirely into South Atlantic. If they saw that that wasn't going their way, and because they had invested enough early in there, there's no way they could defend it reasonably now. I wonder if they're now going to entirely pivot to trying to contest the South Atlantic centers to try and get some of their last few dots there from, say, Portugal or the Dutch.
Yeah, definitely interesting.
Lots of bounces nonetheless. Let's pivot over to South
Mhm.
America here and see how everything's going out. Progress for Mapuche still going about as well as you can expect. They're just chomping on the bit for Guarani. However, Mapuche has left a few of their backsides open. Spain is going to just try and tap Huarpe because Mapuche has let them and just let them bounce in.
I mean, they're going to
Mara's
try, but that can get dodged.
Mara's opting
Right. At least there's that.
and Mara is opting to vacate Azura to Spain, go to Nazca Ridge. I don't understand that. I'm curious why they decided for that tactics play because they could have held it. Because they have
No,
Chuma that's not doing anything because they sent their attack from Madeira in the other direction.
And they move into Witchy.
Yeah, I mean, the
I
one
don't.
good thing is that the retreat from Madurai means that they can actually defend Chuma. Actually, wait, no, because Shippo in Madurai could tap Pano, so I'm pretty sure that here, um, they have a very good chance of losing Chumai unless they play very carefully.
I think it's entirely possible.
Hmm.
Dang. Really unfortunate to see.
Or,
Spain also just backfills Peru Basin behind Aymara.
mhm.
Really
I think
unfortunate to see.
Chuma is fine. Barely.
Yeah,
It's
really,
barely fine. I think Amara's in a lot of trouble here, though. I think all the
yeah.
colonials are working together against them. Meanwhile, Amara's trying to move it to Mapuche for some reason.
Yeah, Amara's trying to just stab for more dots rather than defend themselves, and just completely leaving centers like Azura open. Madeira's just gonna get bounced out. They might lose Chumia. It's not pleasant for them at the current moment. Mapuche is
I mean, at least some respect to them for realizing that Mapuche is such a big threat because they are growing quite large now.
indeed Mapuche has a large amount of centers underneath them at this point, and while it hasn't gone well in Oceania, their presence in South America has secured them a large amount of dots at this point. If they can continue to
Mhm.
manage that and hold off this aggression from the other players like Spain and Aymara, I imagine Mapuche will do very well here. So we're going to have to see how they can let everything resolve on this northernmost border here. I imagine they're going to just point out to Aymara how much pressure they're facing from Spain and just try and convince them that they don't need to be fighting over this.
Yes, the pressure of one fleet that's about to be kicked out. Yeah, I would say
Yep.
I would say that's a high ask, except Mapuche has been doing really well recently, so there is the chance that they could persuade Amara of this. So
it's,
we'll see. We'll
I think,
see.
I think it's entirely possible. Portugal continuing to try and stay alive in the region, and the Dutch aren't really being the aggressors towards them at this point. So Portugal just kind of sitting and living right here.
Yeah, the Dutch seem content in this position to just hold on to all of the dots they currently have.
Mhm.
They're not making any aggressive moves towards anyone else. They're helping Spain take a dot.
Curious. We are currently sitting. Yeah, the Dutch are still a fair ways away from their total VSCC, so they are going to need a little bit more help if they're going to want to continue to climb. Portugal actually is a bit closer to the top of the leaderboard than I expected.
Yeah.
I imagine.
Uh,
I imagine
I mean,
looking
they're
at this.
making really good progress in South Africa, so it makes sense in that regard because, yeah, they're just eating away at Congo there and just a lot of SCs at their disposal.
Indeed, they're making the gains that they need to. I'm worried that those gains are going to stall out fairly soon, and they're not going to have much more progress that they can end up making. But they are still holding in there fairly well. I imagine, though,
Mhm.
looking at the leaderboard as it currently stands, I imagine it's going to be these top three who are the ones we definitely need to be watching out for between England, Mapuche, and New Shoshone.
yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
England is especially a worry if they can defend home centers well, if they can stabilize in North America, and we'll cover that in a second because it looks like they are making some progress. And if the Indian Peninsula, it's not looking well, but there are avenues wherein they're able to stabilize here and, while not gain anything, not lose everything, which is important considering that they are at the top of the board at the moment.
Mhm.
I think if you're England, you need to try and stall India out for as long as you can and funnel all builds elsewhere.
I think that just about
Because I
is.
don't see how you hold the rest of India here. Mughals has so many units here, plus Ayutthaya's coming to help, so
I'm thinking that perhaps once.
I wouldn't say like full disband India,
Right.
but you're definitely looking at other areas now as your path to expansion.
My thinking is that there are these three armies that are sitting here on the Indian Peninsula. I imagine that once Mughal reaches the front line of those armies, they're going to struggle to make much more progress than that. England still does have fleets in the area, and again, if they continue to build and North America goes well, they won't have to disband, and they can certainly, if not make progress, but at the very least, attempt to hold their ground.
Mhm.
Yeah, the nice thing for England is that Goa and Kadanor are fleets, so Ballari is a pretty safe SC to hold right now.
Indeed.
That's a really nice
Mhm.
line that they can solidify.
Yeah, and they can't ever.
Yeah, in fact, I really love that Bellari, Raichur, Masolapatam line because there's like no way that Mughals get in there
Mhm.
unless, and then I just saw it. Yeah, Ayutthaya gets into Andhra Coast. Yeah, that could break up the line a little bit, especially with Penaru walking out. But I think that it's still somewhat savable here. You just need to hope that Mughals does not support Ayutthaya into Masolapatam because that would ruin the line.
Yeah, and even then, it's defendable without losing Raichur because Mughals supported Orissa into Raja.
Indeed.
So Raichur could tap Raja, Gulf of Ceylon could tap Andhra Coast, and you cover both options. The scary
Okay,
thing will
yeah.
be if there's any convoyable units, which I don't see. Pegu could. That would be unfortunate.
Oh, that would be spicy. I would love to
Yeah,
see that. All right.
that would be fun.
Nonetheless, we got slightly sidetracked there. Let's go over and look at the
Caribbean.
Caribbean.
Poland gets
Hmm.
Caracas.
Poland, Poland does get into Caracas. It looks like they 2-2 bounced over it. Oh no, because
Carpathian cuts.
France cups it and
Oh
Capation.
yeah.
Yes. Meanwhile, England just spiderwebs everything, surrounds Carpathian and Saint Domingo.
Yep. Just
Hmm.
continue to push the advantage. Really just get the last of all of those Caribbean dots. they're all yours for the taking now.
Yep. No one's gonna stop you.
Not too much that can be done from anybody. Even if France and Spain were to magically start working together over this, which I doubt, there's not much they can do about the English pressure with how many fleets they have in this region, applying pressure to all of these different tiles. I imagine we're gonna start seeing all of these Spanish centers like Panama, Cartagena, Caracas. They're just gonna start going. They're gone.
Hmm. I also noticed that England managed to get into Mexico City, and Ute and Spain are starting to work together now. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it looks like both powers tried to piece Spain out. You could see Mexico City's support holding Saltillo,
Mhm.
Hmm.
but
Interesting that
Spain and
England
EU
went
to
for
work
that.
together. Mexico City is dislodged.
I would imagine that Yushishon would have tried to apply the pressure that they have in order to continue making their gains. Because while it's true, after a certain point, Yushishon is going to struggle to make much progress down within the. Like once they get to the point of the Yucatan Peninsula, Yushishon's not going to fight England well with their Caribbean presence there. But a few more of those dots are what Yushishon is probably going to need in order to finalize out the game. I imagine you don't need to take them immediately, so helping out with Spain and making sure that you can help them stabilize against England a little bit is certainly a strong play.
Right. I really like it because, especially since England is board top right now, Ute just needs to knock them from that position so that they could emerge victorious.
Indeed. Rolling up a little bit further, Ute is continuing on a bit more with their advance. They've actually attempted to support Athabasca into French centers here, really just trying to push against France. And sure enough, Inuits has realized that Ute Shone is just going to continue barreling north after they clean up Athabasca here, so they're just trying to stall him out a little bit more. But Athabasca is entirely willing to just walk out at this point. Fair enough.
I don't get it, but it's fine.
Hey, you know
I
what?
mean, yeah, they're struggling.
Gotta
They're
make,
struggling.
gotta do something after a certain point, I suppose.
Yep.
England, and this is part of what I want to talk about here. England has now turned on France once again. We're seeing fleet go into Kappa Melees here. They have gotten Inuit support into Nakaskapi, which
Mhm.
it looks like will succeed because Nakaskapi is moving out through this Inuit unit here. No, that's 2-2 bouncing, and that means that's 2-2 bouncing. Oh, no, there's.
No, no, they
No,
get in, I'm pretty sure, because,
they get into Nascapi
yeah,
Well,
because,
because Labrador Sea is supporting, plus Kujak is also supporting, and Nascapi can't cut its own support. So
indeed.
the end result here is that England gets Nascapi.
mhm,
Yeah.
and a very good attack on Anticosti in the near future.
Yep,
Yeah, England's trying to clean up these
and they
French
have
dots now.
Yeah.
a nice position on Seneca and Ville Marie.
Hmm.
Does not look like France was really expecting it to happen this early, so they were not really preparing for it much.
Right.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure what this French fleet in Tadusak's doing.
I, I
Maybe
mean,
trying
Yeah.
to guess on the Athapascan Sea or Athapascan army, but like
that must be what it
I
is,
don't
but
know.
Fleet Quebec is doing next to nothing. Because Fleet Quebec can't support
Yeah,
hold Ville Marie here, so England just has
yeah.
Ville Marie.
Mhm.
No, they can support hold it from Fort
Well,
Detroit.
no. Yeah, but that would
And if you're
also
trying to
mean
push
giving away
Inuit, why not push
Seneca.
into more
So.
of Quebec?
Might as well. I'm also looking at the move into Mohawk here.
Hmm.
Yeah, England is applying their pressure here. While not everything is going well for them on the board, they are certainly applying a lot of pressure. And if they just keep getting dots from North America and keep getting dots from the Caribbean, England might just run away with this. So I imagine the entire board is looking over to Sweden right now and going, please, please try and take London from them. Please, I beg of you. And if And if England just attacked France, France is still an English channel from the looks of it. So that could certainly cause more headaches for England than they may want.
Wow, yeah, no kidding. And not to mention that many fleet builds from Sweden earlier on,
Mhm.
they have more than enough units to pour against England if they so desire.
If they're able to funnel those out of Sweden, then that will certainly line up very nicely. That being said, though, I think that about covers the spring moves here. Shall we move on to the fall?
Yeah, I'm
Let's
down.
do it. Fall moves.
Go ahead and pull the fall moves up here. Still a fair amount of commotion in South Atlantic Ocean here. Why don't we start down here? Mapuche, as
Ooh.
previously said, they no, they don't.
Ooh.
Aymara is continuing.
No!
Aymara
What
is
go wrong
Aymara,
here?
what are you doing?
Oh my
Aymara.
god.
Mapuche was like the one person working with you. Now you've made your intentions obvious, and you're fighting. I mean, yeah, Mapuche is on the top of the board compared to everyone else around you. Mapuche is the game winning threat, but you're losing Azura here. You're not putting any pressure on keeping your home centers at all. Spain is just gonna keep pushing in against you here.
Yeah, and I believe Amara went neutral here because they ended up grabbing Triperia and Licantania, and they just lost the other two to Spain. So
Mhm.
it's not even like significant ground is being gained. And as we discussed earlier, Chuma is very much at risk of being lost to everything.
Yep.
So he needs to play very carefully in order to continue, or they.
Ibarra has declared their intentions. I'm honestly incredibly shocked. I felt like, at the very least, diplomatically, Mapuche was going to be able to handle this. I'm very well done by Spain for getting Aymara to completely turn around and basically just let them lock in those centers from them. Very well done, Spain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
It
I
unfortunately
mean,
just seems that beyond that, that's really just the extent of what happened. Aymara is also sending a nuisance army up to Jay, which is going to be annoying for Netherlands, but not get a ton of work done, it seems. It mostly just seems
mm-hmm.
like Spain's going to benefit down here, and Mapuche is going to be very, very upset.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, luckily it's not really the end of the world. Because they do lose that Triperia build, so I'd imagine that they just rebuild it elsewhere. Because an army build in Rinkulcha is going to be really nice because it gets you back that center that you would have gotten earlier if Amara didn't bounce you.
I don't think, problem is, I don't think Mapuche is building because if we go over here, remember they're getting just completely wiped out
Oh,
over in Oceania. They've lost two over here. They didn't lose all three, but they lost two centers over there. They've
wow,
lost.
yeah, I didn't even see that yet.
They lose
Ooh.
3 here.
They lose Warpe, and they don't gain anything new from the looks of
Gain
it.
nothing. So they're -3.
Yeah, big ouch for Mapuche stands here. Not working well in their favor. Again, well done to Spain
Yeah.
though for being able to turn that around.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of the free colonials in South America, once again, it just seems like they are committing to not really messing with each other much. All three of them are on the back foot everywhere else, so I'm a little surprised that two of them haven't ganged up on the third in order to try and make some progress work. I imagine that's just because tensions are so high everywhere else, they're not really coordinating much at all. So they're just sitting there because they want to get dots, but they're not sure how they can. I imagine eventually, though, we're going to see something
Yeah.
like Madeira go into Japira up here and try and contest some of these Netherlands dots.
Yeah, I'd hope so, just to switch things up because I mean, I guess the Madurai could go into Pano and that'd just be crushing because it really would threaten Chumai and Kola or Kolu. Sorry, I cannot
It's all
speak.
good.
But yeah, I mean, that army really has the option of so many nice things. But I guess with Aymara being a nuisance to the Dutch don't really have the time to go after Spain here, so I think we may just be seeing a Dutch and Spain alliance going on.
Potentially. I mean, they both have lost a lot, so maybe better for them to try and stick together and cooperate when they can. But there's not that much that they can cooperate over. I think this is the only front they share at this point.
Hmm. That's probably fair.
Well, this and over in the Philippines, I suppose. But let's finish up over here
Okay.
first. Looking up closer to the Caribbean.
Caribbean. England crushes,
Yep.
Yeah, that's. Oh, they
gets
managed to
both
gain
shots.
both this turn. Ooh. Wow.
Yeah, really unfortunate
Rough.
France in this region, but their days were numbered as it stands. So, excuse me.
Hmm.
Rough day to be the French.
England has a just a very controlling grip over the region. It's not great, mind you. It is still not fantastic. They still have to clean up a few things. They just lost Mexico City. They haven't regained Belize yet. And they're actually retreating out of Bay of Panama rather than trying to press advantage further into Spanish centers. But they have pretty much all of the islands at their disposal.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that entire Caribbean is going to be painted red, and as soon as England has the time to move those fleets down against Spain, it's going to be a very big headache because I can only imagine Cap-Haitian going to Caribbean Sea, St. Domingo Mona Passage, and then maybe even supporting that same Cap-Haitian to Caribbean Sea. Yeah, Spain is not going to have a fun time here.
It is full defense for the Spanish in the area, just trying to maintain whatever presence they can.
Hmm.
We continue up the coast and see how England is doing elsewhere. It does look like they have made tried to make the push onto Incosity here. Inuit Inuit at this point is supporting England, trying to help them out and holding Nagasaki, which is very interesting to see. I don't really hate it though. France is going to lose Incosity though, and while they do not
They
lose Villa
keep.
Marie,
Oh no, they lose it.
yeah, that
No, they keep it.
no, it's 3 against 2, is it not? Oh no, it's 2 against 2. That's a tap.
2-2.
My mistake.
Michikamu cuts,
It does
and then
indeed.
Quebec moves to Gasp.
It looks like it. Quebec to
There
Gasp.
you go. There you go.
They do in fact get Seneca though, and their position are still maintaining. They seem to be getting along
Yeah,
well
I
with you.
don't like this if you're France. I think France is losing quite a few just overall here.
Yeah, they lose.
They
Yeah.
lose OG Cree as well to Ute.
Yeah, and Ute is just looking so strong here. Just gonna continue pushing eastward, and with France already being occupied amongst themselves, there is no way that they'll be able to hold on for too long. So Ojikri is currently falling, then it'll be Obijiwe, and yeah, I'd imagine Fort Detroit soon after that. Don't see it going too much longer.
Indeed, it really does look like that. If Yuchon can keep up the pressure, they may be able to clean out the entire rest of the continent here potentially. England has the presence here, don't get me wrong, but if you can just continue moving their armies eastward, I don't think England will be able to meaningfully combat them. England's even
And definitely.
Yeah, England's in a lot of trouble here, I think, long term. We'll see if we get far enough in the game for it to matter, but I think Ute's going to be the dominant force in North America.
I think it's going to come down to England's diplomacy here at this point. England has left Catawba open, and from there, Jamestown's not going to be far to fall. I imagine that if you can potentially just keep up with everything and keep applying the pressure forward, if they want to do that, they can be successful in that. just a matter if England can talk them down from it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
the nice thing for England is that it's a build. Sorry, it's a build phase next, so they could build in Jamestown.
That is
Right.
very true indeed.
Maybe get some convoys off. We'll see.
Convoys would be very interesting. I think at this point, they just want to build more armies just so that they could line the coast and maybe defend what little SCs they have from Ute coming in long term.
Right. Well, it may not. It may seem like just a few SCs. That's what 8, 9 SCs just up along the coast. That's pretty significant amount for both players. So if you're able to start contesting them, that's one of England's biggest areas of growth right now. Is up here in North America. So if you can contest that, England's going to have trouble maintaining their pace to reach VSCC.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You looking very strong at the moment. Scrolling up a little bit
Right.
just to cover what else is going on here. Athapaska is, I think, all but fully eliminated at this point.
They are. We also skipped over it, but Guarani is also fully dead to this phase. Actually, no, that's a lie. Guarani lives.
I
We'll
think,
get to that.
yeah, I think Gorani managed to
Yeah.
sneak their way somewhere, but
Yeah.
Athapaska is done for the count from the looks of
Athapaska
it.
is dead.
Mhm.
Who is
And
that?
the first casualty, always sad to see.
Indeed. Unfortunate for them. I imagine it really depends on how much pressure he wants to force. Inuit does have some armies moving in. They have some amount of units over here on their Alaskan side, and obviously over here they have some fleet forces that are sitting here just trying to hold their centers. I don't know if you intend to fully push in, especially since they're moving things like Chilcotin down to Chinook here.
Yeah, Ute was
Yeah, I
very
think they're
generous to Inuits in terms of the split that Inuit got from Athapaska. Ute definitely could have just given Inuit absolutely nothing.
Indeed.
mm-hmm.
All right, I think that's North America covered then.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at this Guarani unit,
Deal with
shall
these
we?
stupid oceans.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Well,
the
Ronnie gets St.
magical
Helena.
Goron unit.
Yep. It looks like Guarani's going to have a fairly easy time for the rest of this game since they're just going to be sitting in St. Helena for it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
it is definitely the big funny, just having the South American regional. Oh yeah, I'm just chilling here. Don't mind me.
Well, if there's a tile that you're just gonna sit in and just be like, please don't kill me, St. Helena's not the worst one. There are not a lot of people who can apply enough pressure to you from there. Although Mapuche has just put 2 fleets into South Atlantic, so they will be able to take that next year should they decide they want to.
Yeah, already
Yeah.
practically solo killed the people, so now they're headhunting him.
Pretty much. Unfortunate for Congo, but I do think Congo is all but eliminated as well. Yeah, they have the funny centers that they're holding up here, and then Pongo, and that is it. Oh no, they do get
Congo
Mandara.
by some miracle is only -1 this phase.
They're pretty much out of their home centers, but they're keeping the funny centers, and you know what? They're alive for it.
Wow, yeah.
Let's quickly just.
I mean,
Sorry, go ahead.
I was about to say they may even be going. Yeah, they're only going -1, so yeah, it could have been so much worse. Or wait, no, I don't even think they're going minus because uh two they have 2 SCs west of the Dutch. They have Pango. They are grabbing Mapemba, and they're using Lone Go to attack Mandara. They are going neutral. That is
They gain
crazy.
Mandara and Bondo, and they lose Mbanza, Soyo, and St. Helena.
St. Helena.
So they're
Oh, I
-1.
didn't see St. Helena. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
a respectable
That's
effort from
so
this Congo
crazy.
player to stay alive, though.
Yeah, they are mismatched everywhere, but if they manage to keep it, that'd be impressive.
It would certainly be very funny. All right, I wanted to quickly
Yes.
cover the south here before we get too far.
Yeah, I don't know what this French unit in SAO2 is doing, but
Uh,
it's fine.
I think that was supposed to be a support. It works out anyways. They are in Cape Coe.
Yeah,
Yep.
it was guaranteed anyways. Not a big deal.
Pretty much
Ajuran gets Moravi.
that they do, though Portugal kicks them out of Beira.
I think you take that
Right.
trade if you're Ajuran.
Agreed.
Yeah, especially since if you go into Mutapa here, then Beira will very likely fall shortly after, especially if you can get in your armies more so on the deal.
Mhm.
Yeah, it depends on where Moravi and Beira decide to retreat to. If they both decide to retreat to Mutapa, that'd be interesting.
Hmm. Oh
Indeed.
wait,
Beira can also go to
Moravia is
Comoros
not
Sea.
retreating, right?
Moravi's not retreating. No,
Moravia
that's the
is.
one
Oh
taking
no,
Beira.
Moravi is not
Oh,
retreating.
yeah, Cape Koa, Cape Koa. Ooh.
Cape Koi could retreat up.
Koi can't retreat to Mutapa, but it
I'm
can
curious
retreat
to see
to
where Beira retreats to.
it can go to Delagoa,
Mhm.
and that may help in Portugal's trying to defend at least a smidge. I do think that Audron still
Yeah.
has good pressure. I'm surprised that they went to attack Sakalava, but I don't hate it. If that Portuguese unit had attempted to move to, say, Comoros Sea in order to try and put pressure on these centers, then sniping that from under them would have been a very nice payout. Unfortunately, they just got the guess wrong there.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if we're going to see some more Ajarani fleets coming down and starting to maybe try and contest into Reunion or some of these other dots, push further down to Madagascar. They have. It's one of the problems with Ajaran is that they just have such a long way to go in order to get most of their gains. But they're making steady progress, and if they can continue it up, then they will be one of the people who ends out largely on top of the board. Very good for them.
Yeah. Especially if you're Ajuran not going after Abyssinia, it takes forever to get to South Africa.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
Right. Speaking of Abyssinia, I just looked up. Why are they doing well? Why are they holding this? This is crazy. Last time I was here, they were losing everything. What is happening?
What happened is the
I'm pretty sure
Ottomans.
Abyssinia gets to build this phase.
Yeah, what happened is the Ottomans got completely crushed. Abyssinia is losing Cairo, but gaining their capital back, which is nice. I don't think they have any other builds though.
Yeah, but
They
Oxum
didn't
is
get to build
gonna be
last year,
lost.
so they're working a unit down right now.
Ah, well, good for them.
Yeah, especially since Oxum is going to be lost next year.
Mhm.
Ottomans are going to have a very tough time keeping that one. So they have such big potential here that I'm shocked they managed to recover back from that. But whatever that JLo unit was, the Abyssinia unit there that took Cairo, that has saved them so much time and energy.
It has. They really have been able to. Abyssinia really has been able to recover from their situation well and stabilize a little bit. They're not dead, and that is quite impressive.
Yeah, especially since after didn't they go a +1 turn 1? So that's
Yes.
very difficult to come back from, and
Mhm.
they managed to do it. They are very difficult to kill now and have some great potential in the future. So I really like this from them.
I don't think they're gonna. I don't think they're gonna do too much, but I think they're gonna stabilize out and potentially end up in the position of being a solid power, which is very respectable after how their year one.
For sure. I think it largely depends on what Ajuran decides to do in the build phase. Ajuran is going +3, I think, this phase.
I
And
imagine.
so if they just slap down a couple of armies,
Well, here's the thing.
like
Ajaron
pivot,
Ajaron had the opportunity to try and carve a piece of the Abyssinia gains earlier in the game as well, and they denied that request then. If they want to try and do it, now is not the greatest time to try and push back against Abyssinia since they're going positive for the first time in a long time. Right?
Right. I was about to say Giron had such a good moment against them way back when. I think like turn 2 or turn 3, but yeah, now they Abyssinia's units almost have nothing to do after they take Oxum, so they are just waiting for that next fight. And I think if you're Ajuran here, you do not want to become their next target.
Pretty much. Let's shift over to the rest of the Thunderdome, though.
the Thunderdome.
We've already covered how Congo has worked out here. More funny cores and once again, next to nothing happens.
I mean, Poland snipes Mali.
It's about what we expected.
Ottoman tries to go into West Africa. I expect that unit to be disbanded, though. I'll be honest.
Mhm. I don't think.
And
They're gonna stay
Portugal
there long.
loses a guess, maybe.
Yeah, pretty much. They could have. The Gambia
Between
here could
Jacob
have gone
Ford
to.
and Karu.
Yeah, they could have 50-50 that. And you know what? It's on Portugal for not seeing the fact that the funny core was an option. So of course you're gonna go for the funny core.
Exactly, exactly. See, sometimes the funny cores are a tactical resource.
It's
Funny
basically
cores
a
are just
hold.
holds in disguise.
It's in this
Mhm.
situation, it's basically a hold. I have had
Yeah.
many more cores that I have very rightly called out at this point. But
It's alright. I see at least one hold later that we can talk about.
don't tempt me. Overall, though, I will say, especially compared to how we have seen some of the past Blitz games, we've seen a lot more proactive play from a lot of the players. There has not been a ton of holding you, and looking at this part of the board, while I say this, is not exactly going to resolve my point. We've been seeing a lot more proactive plays from these players, attempting to actively do things with their units rather than hold and let things happen to them, which is a good thing. It's one of my biggest things that I was
Yeah.
really hoping would come out of the previous Blitz games, whenever seeing all of these holds turn into less than stellar performances.
We are
Mhm.
slowly learning how to play Blitz.
Yeah, good, good.
Hey, look, maybe it's just that I'm used to all of this because I primarily play under really short time constraints already when I play diplomacy. But learning all these things is good. You gotta really continue to reapply the pressure. You can't back down. You can't just be wishy washy and change your mind every single turn. You have got to commit. You've got to throw your muscle around.
Mhm.
Yep.
Definitely, and especially in Blitz, where your opponents just don't have the time to think through the tactics. So it's much harder to do to make an attack go wrong because they just don't have the time to actually calculate through why it is so wrong.
Mhm. Indeed. With the shorter time constraint, you have a lot more leeway to get away with some things than you couldn't before. But you also have to be careful that you're not making the mistakes yourself.
Oh,
Yep.
absolutely.
All right
Anyways,
then.
yeah, let's look up and look at Europe, see how they're doing.
Indeed.
Yep. The Mediterranean is a mess.
Everything's a mess. Portugal actually gets dotted in Azores and Libsyn here. Lisbon, sorry.
Yeah, dotting,
Mhm.
dotting everywhere.
Mhm.
Fortunately for Portugal, England goes for the support into Azores and not the support into Greenland.
Which is, it's good for them in this
So
case.
that's one dot saved.
Indeed.
Uh,
Mhm.
Portugal also just gets to walk into Nantes, which is very nice for them. And France
yeah,
Wow, yeah.
France walks into Plymouth? Wow. This is a turn. Okay. One step
this
at a
is
time,
it
though.
turned in.
Our
Yeah,
continued
so
our continued exasperation at Portugal never building fleets on the Iberian Peninsula. It's starting to come back as now Spain's dotting them, and France, of all people, is trying to be the benefactor.
yeah, I mean, the Barcelona move is huge for France, but I am very disappointed to see Marseille didn't follow behind because that could have gone very well for France. Oh
Of
wait, no,
course,
this is fall
Well, it
move.
makes sense
So
because they
sorry,
don't
I
want to
thought it
lose
was.
Marseille to a Dijon retreat.
it does make sense they don't want to move it,
Mhm.
but I do want to point out
Could have bounced away though.
it is incredibly funny that you just put in an illegal order for Marseille at that point. Land fleet, what you gonna do? What you gonna do?
Yeah,
Austria
Mhm.
gets
basically as useful as a core.
pretty much in this point. Austria gets back into Strasbourg, but is going to lose Dijon. And we're back where we were a little bit ago. France is even out of Ghent again. It all just goes back to where it was.
Mhm. Wonderful. This is exactly what we're looking for in this kind of chaotic position. Is nothing happening.
And the end result is nothing. Mediterranean is
What
Mhm.
even happens this phase? In the I'm looking up at the Baltic. I'm getting ahead of myself here.
all good. Quickly cover Mediterranean. Spain ends up losing Tripoli, but walks into Sicily.
They don't lose. Sicily Ionian bounce.
Ah, that is a bounce there.
So Tripoli
Is it
stays,
a
which means
bounce?
Cairo bounces, which means Red Sea bounces.
Oh, that's
Incredible conga line.
that's Naples supporting Tyrrhenian to Ionian, not Sicily to
Yup.
Ionian. Dang.
Mhm.
All right.
And even if it was Sicily to Ionian, it would have bounced Tripoli anyways.
Their southern
So
fronts.
Spain keeps Tripoli.
Yeah, Spain keeps Tripoli, and while their southern fronts are going badly, Ottomans are actually looking fairly respectable to up here in the European area. They have the entirety of the Black Sea under their control now. Because
Well, they did.
with this capture of
This
Bakhtarasi, it's going to lock it down for them and really help them try and support in and maintain a stronghold here while everything else is falling apart for them.
Yeah, they trade Split for Pressburg.
Mhm.
I think you take that as the Ottomans at this point.
Yeah,
Mhm.
especially with the number of fleets that Austria still has around Italy, it's likely that you weren't going to hold it for very long.
Though I am moderately surprised they moved it into Pressburg with Transylvania. I would imagine that Alfold would be much more suited for that kind of thing.
You agree? Maybe it's just because they
Yeah, I
just
wonder if they want the unit to support hold in like with Alfold.
Hmm.
maybe
Curious.
maybe they plan to move Alfold into Slavonia later, perhaps.
Yeah, but they're never getting into Split. Austria has that very much so locked down.
Yeah.
It becomes a guessing game, I think.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Actually, does it?
Well,
No, you just get Split because Pressburg can tap Trieste.
yeah, with the pressure, being able to tap Trieste does add to your attacking spliff a little bit more, but Naples can also tap Strait of
Yeah,
Otranto
and
at
then
this point.
backfill Savonia. So yeah, this makes sense.
All right, let's look at the Baltic next. Then we've already talked about English Channel and England losing Plymouth, which is funny. I think this is Sweden getting into Kiel here,
Yeah, Sweden
and
gets Kiel and Lubeck, cuts Brandenburg, so Austria can't get Krakow.
yep,
Keeps
Poland.
Königsberg, Russia gets Warsaw, Gdansk bounces.
Yeah, Gdansk bounces. Russia walks into Warsaw.
Really good turn for Sweden here.
Yeah, Sweden's looking very nice here and is likely just going to clean all of this up over the next few turns.
Just don't look north.
How bad is it? Oh, it's just a move to
Not terrible.
It's just a move to Norwegian Sea. It could be
It's
worse.
like a fly buzzing around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sweden still is holding North Sea,
Yes.
and England can't put a ton of pressure on them quite yet
In
because
fact, they could put zero pressure.
pretty much, especially with France and Plymouth.
Yeah.
Oxford got covered, London got covered.
Yep. Russia.
Yeah.
Uh,
Sweden's doing quite well here.
yeah, Sweden is looking quite solidly here. I wonder if I suppose I should say I wonder when they're going to pivot and start attacking some of these Russian centers. But right now they don't really need to. They need to focus on making sure that they have a clean and secure border after cleaning up all these Polish centers first before they start going elsewhere. And even then, I imagine they want to focus on England since they're one of the few people that can actually do something about England aside from Shoshone.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
I expect to see a Fleet Christiana, Fleet Trondheim, but I would not be surprised if an army gets built in the east here from Sweden.
It wouldn't be too surprising. But nonetheless, I think Sweden
Yeah.
does have a solid hold of this area now. Russia here, looking at them, it's a little difficult to see everything. But they're going to retake Krakow. They bounce over in Ostrakhan at this point. They lose Bakhtarasi to that trade.
Yeah, Baktrasi for Kharkov.
Mhm.
They take Verk back, but lose Alamuli positioning in the process.
Yeah, but they were already a bit out of position with that in the first place. As long as they are able to keep Siberian tundra under control, they force England back out of Rakutia here. So that random fleet that just popped in is going to do literally nothing.
Jeez.
England wishing it
And
was
it only
in
gets
Arkhangelsk.
Yeah, they could have sent it to
it
Archangel.
only, okay. It only gets weirder the farther right you move. I will warn of that.
I saw a
This
large
gets
blotch of pink on my screen. We'll get to that when we get there. I would just like to
yeah,
point out the
but
power move of not only coring on an active front line that you have, but also tapping your own core at the same line. Baller. Baller.
mhm.
Truly glorious.
Alright, let's look at the rest of Safavid while we're just scrolling around here. They're keeping Kabardia and they're getting Tbilisi here. They do
Mhm.
not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is
this is a good Safavid turn here, I think.
They still have positioning and they're doing alright. Do they get Muscat in all of this craziness? I think.
yes.
They
Oh,
do.
yes,
Oh wait,
because
3
no,
versus 2.
no, they don't. Because Strait of Hormuz is supporting Keshem to Rustock. It looks like.
No! Why would you do this?
Oh no. Yeah.
No,
big
Safavid.
rip.
Don't they realize Keshem would have just bounced Riyadh if they moved to Rustock?
Ah, big rip.
Tragic.
Absolutely
Mhm.
tragic. Profits don't get into
They're
Trebizond,
still
but
not bad for Safavids.
yeah, they still have
Oh
a.
yeah.
They're doing good against the Ottomans here. Their Mughals have somewhat turned against them, but it's basically nothing at this point. They don't even really have
Mughals is
Mhm.
so busy with England and India that,
right.
like, there's nothing on this front.
Slow and steady, but Safavid is still
Ajuran
going.
also just took right. Ajuran also just took back Mara, which is very funny.
That is funny.
It's yeah. Why did Soft Vids go for that instead of Muscat? I don't know, but well, they lost it now, so it is what it is.
Just blitz things. And while we're looking
Mm-hmm.
at the Indian Peninsula over here, what what is this over here? So England tries to support themselves back into Audra Coast, which 2-2 bounces. And yeah,
Bounces everywhere.
Audra Coast does get into Moslipson, looks like.
Well, that would be 2-2, no? So it would bounce.
Uh, well, no,
well,
because
Bay,
uh,
I think Bay of Bengal gets in to Andhra Coast because. Oh wait,
But Andamans
I
can't
don't actually.
support against itself. So I think everything
I
here just stays.
okay. Okay. Yeah. This is weird.
I think
Because
it's.
I
Well,
know
Tactics.
I think the Audra Coast unit is supported by the Mughals and Raja Mahandri, so it's going to get into Mashlabnadam. I believe is how that's going to play out, though.
except Gulf of
Uh,
Ceylon is supporting Masulipatam into Andhra Coast. So
Oh
those two cancel
yeah.
out.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
yeah,
I
everything cancels out.
End result is nothing happens once again.
End
England.
result is the only thing that changes description.
Well, no, because Portugal
yeah.
also gets Miraji, so they just flip those two.
So it's a trade. Mughals gains 2 here. Good job, Mughals.
Good job, Mughals. Yeah, you core Sasaram again. You double core that province. Go for it. Why not? All right,
I hate it so much.
let's just bite the bullet. Let's see what
Oh,
we're looking
don't
at
we
here.
all?
Let's just go all the way over here first. Inuit's pretty much just out of here. Jing ended up taking corrects here from Tokugawa. Tokugawa just wanted to prioritize keeping Chikuis first, I suppose.
Almost complained about Tokugawa covering Koryax, but there's a Spanish fleet there, so it makes sense.
Yeah, Spain has already dotted Tokugawa once, so
Yeah,
Yeah.
learn to not make the same mistake twice.
it looks like
Toku and Ming both support holding Pyongyang. Incredible.
the three of them have made up again, and they're all just accepting the situation that they're in. Yeah.
Then we get to Russia.
All right, then we get to this.
Mess.
Car gets the Highland foe, and to be fair,
What is Amber doing?
if Ching's gonna go and cover a province they already own, might as well just run amok in the back
It's
line and take
not under
everything.
threat at all.
Might as well.
Inuit can't reach. Why do you not cover Highland POW?
Ming,
I guess you just use your capital anyways, so fair, but
Ming is the one who gets into
Like-
Ichkari, which I believe is pretty important. Ming has been sitting here and not doing a ton, so hey, who knows? Maybe the Russian dots that are there are the ones that are good for you to take. You really do want to see
Yeah.
Ming push further out beyond that, though, because Ming just kind of seems to be at peace with
I mean, Ming's
just about
getting
everyone
up.
else.
Ming's about to push Portugal out, and please, for the love of God, if they stab Qing here.
I really want Ming to do something. They are making progress to move a bit further south, but they opt to self-bounce in Kunming rather than actively make progress, which is unfortunate to see.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I'm shocked that the Portuguese have stayed alive for as long as they have in Macau because there's so many occasions where Ming should have just taken Macau or
Honestly.
Hainan or something.
they're managing to live through this on the good graces of that alone.
Well, not just that, but also on that one misorder. Because remember the time Ming moved to Guangxi
True.
instead of Macau?
True.
Yeah, dude, this Portugal should not be still there. God. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's fun to see them still there because at least it keeps the balance between Ayutthaya and Ming going. Because if Qing or if Ming were to have grabbed Macau, Hainan would have been soon after, and then Hanoi is just the next major target. And Ayutthaya, actually looking at it, they're doing pretty well for themselves. They're getting Sambas here, they're getting Sumatra. I really like Ayutthaya here.
They are doing quite well,
Yeah.
especially since they're cleaning up all of these Dutch centers down here in Oceania. Cleaning up these last few regions down
The
here.
slower Ming moves, the better it is for Ayutthaya.
Absolutely. I would really like to see Ming actually take some action and try and push against them, but I'm wondering if it's a bit too little too late at this stage. Ayutthaya, though?
Probably. Especially since you need Macau and Hainan to form an effective push against Ayutthaya.
Ayutthaya, though, if they can
Uh,
stabilize and perhaps even try and push back in Spain next, I mean, they're getting a lot of dots this year, just from the Dutch centers alone.
Yeah, I love Ayutthaya's position here. I don't
Mhm.
know if they'll catch up to the board tops, but this is a very solid position that's not going to break.
Yeah, Ayutthaya is sitting
Right.
fairly down on the list, even after getting +2 this year, but I think they can definitely make some fair progress.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, is there anything else that we want to discuss before grabbing the builds real quick and taking a look at those?
I think let's go to
Yes.
builds.
Or before we do, why is Spain holding everything? Cotabato is not under threat. You don't need to support hold it. Banjarmasin, really? Like, what? What are you
Yeah, you mean
doing?
you don't want to slip into Natina Sea at all?
Dude, there's just so much
Celibacy?
that
Anything?
yeah, there's so much that they could do. Literally, you can also look at the Duchess position and realize Makassar and Menando are practically gonna be free next year. So just go for something.
Yeah, there's a lot that the Spanish could be doing right now that we are just not seeing. All right, I do want to quickly grab winter builds and then move to spring moves then, because we are now entering year. What year is this properly then? Shall we? End of year
Year-
4. So we're
Entering year 5.
entering year 5. So as things stand, I think the end result is that we're seeing. Unfortunately, I think Mapuche is starting to slip a bit further down the running. We can see that as the leaderboard stands as well. It's.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at this point, it might be England's game to lose. I don't want to say that yet because they are still under pressure from other places. They are not secure in North America. Yuchishon can start to push in. They are not secure in the Indian Peninsula. Mughals can start to push in. They could even start to lose more of the home centers if they are not careful and misplay this area around. And losing the capital just means losing the game.
Yeah,
But
the
Yeah,
fortunate
and
thing for
it's
England is the not snipe.
indeed,
Not snipe means France can't build any fleets, even if they were going positive. I'm not sure if they were or not. No,
indeed,
mhm,
France lost a bunch, so
yeah.
yeah, and especially with Sweden's builds here in Trondheim and Christiana, England needs to be very careful about Sweden as well. Just one odd play like Sweden going to Iceland Basin here, and then it feels like England's position is just starting to slowly collapse.
England is hopefully going
yeah.
to be able to keep this in the wrap because if you just look at it purely by number of centers that each person needs to win, England only needs 16 to win, and even the next best is Yuchishon, who needs 18 to win. So England
Yeah.
is on VSCC, and as far as things are concerned, England is running away with it, but it is not clear
Yeah.
cut. They have
As
opposition that
far
they
as
are
the
facing.
math is concerned, England is currently 20% ahead of
Right.
Ute.
Mhm.
So even if
But
they lose a couple SCs here and there, they are still in a very solid position.
Mhm. But we also have to look at London, the most famous secure SC, especially that of the capital, who now has both a Swedish unit and a French unit bordering it, not to mention two Dutch units 2 tiles away, and another Portuguese one also 2 tiles away. So if they manage to keep London through this, it's definitely possible because I would argue that the other four are not too coordinated right now, but London still needs to be very careful that it doesn't fall within the next few turns.
Absolutely. England is on top, but it is not stable. I think that they can.
Mhm,
I think that they can make it work. We have seen them play very well to get to this position. But they are going to have to finish
mhm.
it out. It's not going to be smooth sailing.
Right. Gotta love the salt mode duo.
Yushishon is also doing fairly well. As we said before, Yushishon is being quite generous in letting Inuits take a large majority of the benefits out of the Athapaska pickups there, who I believe, yes, by the way, has officially been eliminated from the game at this point. Rest in peace. I think
Mhm.
Inuit can
So
definitely
if
still
I
push
were,
in.
mhm,
Yeah, this
yeah,
isn't exactly a position I would love to have if I were Ute. I think you've let Inuit get a little too much, but we'll see.
yeah, I mean, Ute currently has Chipawin or Chiparwin, Satu, Tuchon, and then Denani just shortly thereafter. So that is four armies very close by, and you don't have that many armies there yourself. So
Mhm.
you
Yep.
actually have to be fairly careful that they don't push in too hard against you, especially when it looks like there's a lot of your centers just hanging there for you.
Right, there is
So,
nothing
Yeah.
in Shokotan or Susino right now, so you need to be careful to make sure
mhm,
that their Inuit's not just going to start backfilling into them thereafter. But if Yushishon
If
can,
I'm Mute, I Night Bailiff's phase.
yeah, if Yushishon can manage it diplomatically, though, they have a dominating position against the French here, and they can potentially stabilize and start putting a lot of pressure on the English forces thereafter.
mhm,
I don't know if their relationship
definitely.
with Spain is going to remain stable, but if it does, then that unit in Muskogee is a good help in trying to secure Catawba.
Mhm.
Yep.
Be honest, I think that it does remain fairly stable because if you look at the builds by Ute, nothing clear cut coming down your way towards Spain here. And in addition, Ute has some major lines up against France and England shortly after that. I wouldn't really fear Ute so much if I were Spain. I would definitely be way more concerned about England and just trying to get Ute on board with going after England together. And I think
Absolutely.
both should be very happy with that.
And I think they can definitely push that advantage if they can keep Inuit from trying to take a cut out of their top part of their shavings here.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We already talked about Sweden a bit when we talked about England up here at the top. Sweden number 3 overall on the leaderboard here. They are turning it around and really starting to secure. There's a lot of blue in the Baltic. I think
Right, but sadly, it really is just a lot of those fleets that now just don't have much to do because
right.
they take Brandenburg, but besides that, there is no clear growth opportunities here. They can struggle a little bit against England, but maybe you grab one or two SCs over the next year or two. But besides that, I see Sweden starting to stagnate a little bit until they can actually get their fleets out and against the Dutch faster.
Mhm. This is what we had talked about when we saw those three fleet builds all the way back at the end of year one. It's good early advantage and it's going to press you, but putting all of those units into the Baltic area so soon means that once you're in this mid game position, you're going to start to stumble and fall and run out of momentum. We really want to see Sweden
Right.
really want to see Sweden putting a lot more pressure on England and potentially even against Russia because they do not have the force to push out much further past, say, Brandenburg or Bremen.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, besides that, I would argue that I don't see any more too noteworthy builds.
Give a
Do you guys see anything that you would like to talk about?
scan over everything. Most things make sense here. Uh, Abyssinia is stabilizing. Uh, Safavids are making up for the fact that they couldn't get Muscat last turn by ensuring they're getting it now. Most everything seems to line up. I do like to see the army build from Ming and Kunming here. It means that they're going to start trying to apply that pressure to Ayutthaya, which is what I would like to see from them.
Right.
And
Right.
Netherlands
Do you
somehow,
think they're going to trap to grab? Or sorry, do you think they're going to trap to grab Hanoi here?
if I was
Because it is almost free.
if I was in Ming's position, I would definitely highly consider it because you already have enough fleet pressure on Macau in order to be able to put a lot of density into that. It's very possible that you could say move Guangxi to Hanoi here in the spring, and then in the fall have Guangxi
Hmm.
tap Hainan so you can confirm Macau. It
Hmm.
would require. It's not guaranteed, of course, because then you also could see Ayutthaya move this army they just built in Chiang Mai up to Lan Na, and then they're going to start contesting the Hanoi tile you just took. But it's definitely tempting to just grab Hanoi right now, while Ayutthaya can't effectively deal with it in the immediate fact. If Ming is able to
Uh,
start applying that pressure, it could be very good for
hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. I I'm just curious because would it have been worth it for you to not move your fleet into Hokkien and Foking Strait and instead maybe try to get Portugal on your side? Because you've kept them there long enough, may as well try to reap some benefit out of it.
maybe if this was a longer form game, I think that's definitely something you could try and consider. But in this blitz environment where there
Mhm.
is not a lot of time for press, having spent some of your time with press on Portugal, who right now is basically a non-factor, when you really want to be trying to make sure that you're doing good against Xing and Russia, who are trying to stabilize what's going on with them over here. Maybe maintain friendly relations with Mughal, who still have a fair amount of units who could try and overwhelm your borders if you get diplomatically uninterested in them. If you had more time, it definitely could be a strategy, but in this environment, I don't know if that's something you could consider.
Mhm. That is fair. That is fair.
And the last step that I want to mention before we move on is that I am a little surprised to see that Netherlands was able to squeak out a build here, meaning they're not completely defenseless to Monado and Makassar. I'm still shocked that Spain didn't try and take those when they had the chance. I am I was shocked that
Yeah.
Portugal was alive for as long as they are, and now I am shocked that Netherlands are still alive in this region.
Hmm. Definitely. Definitely.
All right, let's move on to the spring moves then. Something of note here that I am going to go ahead and make sure is on the record here. We've had a number of draw votes get called. I'm not sure. Well, yes or no. So Whether or not they're serious or not is to be up decided. A lot of people are voting yes to these draws, which is very interesting. I think a lot of people have room to play for in this current environment and have the ability to make solid games. So I imagine it may just be the players who are down and out trying to quote unquote end the suffering, but I imagine those near the top of the leaderboard have a lot to play for.
Yeah. The poll was about 50-50, which I think tracks for how this game has been going.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, so it's still a long ways from a draw, with 50% rejecting. So I think that we'll see the rest of this game play out.
All right, we've got spring of year 5 now coming in.
Getting to spring moves 3 minutes before the fall deadline.
Hey, plenty of time. Hey, we
We're
have
doing
time to
good.
talk about them. We are not behind at this point.
True.
This is about the point before we start analyzing specific moves. This right here is around the time where we really need to start seeing the people who are near the top making a push to try to win. There's only so
Mhm.
fast that you
Mhm.
can grow, and this is the as all things considered, this is the last 6 turns that we're coming up on now. It's the start of year 5, game ends at the end of year 7. Maybe not with our time constraint. We may even end at the end of year 6, depending on how fast we end up going. Even more so than to the
Mhm.
point.
We'll have time. We'll go like slightly over, I think, with 2 years left
Mhm.
at this point.
Mhm.
We really need
Like we
to.
might end with like at like the X15 instead of the hour.
True, true. Oh yeah, because they're finishing up the fall turn right now. Sorry.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, with only a handful of turns remaining, we really want to see players like England and Ute Schoen, Sweden, Sofovit, everyone else who's threatening to try and push advantage and make it to the top leaderboard. This is when we really need to see them explode. So I think this
Right.
is potentially the most make or break turn that we're going to see for a little while. This is the turn that's going to decide who is on top, who's threatening a win, and who is just out of the race.
Yep.
Mhm.
Should we start by looking at North America then and seeing how England and Ute Shoshone are managing their relations? From
I
the
would love to.
Yes, because I see some interesting moves
Yeah,
here.
I'm already seeing the southbound arrows from Ute Shoshone. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't hate it. As I just said, Ute needs to push in and take advantage and get some of these centers. And Spain, they can get, I would imagine, 3 dots from Spain. They can get Chitamacha, Saltillo, and Mexico City, but that is a lot of southbound units for 3 centers. I don't know if I agree with sending that much force downwards.
I
Mhm.
think part of it is trying to move sub stuff away from France.
That is
That Cherokee unit is very interesting to me.
Ooh, you think that they were trying to ally with France here? Go against the
It looks
English
like it.
together?
I mean, that's certainly a way that you can approach the end game here. France is still a player who's sitting between you and England, and while you could
Mhm.
stand to gain some of those French dots and then try and barrel forward onwards into England, it's also acceptable to try and prop up France and use that as a wall against England. My problem is that I just
Right.
don't think that's gonna work. England is getting into Villa Marie
Mhm.
here, and they're setting up to be able to hold it with that unit in Estrie. I don't know if
Yeah.
the prop up is going to work successfully. France gets into Erie and
Yeah.
backfills it, which means Yushishone probably just walks into Ojibwe in the fall, which is good for them. But England is
Mhm.
Yes.
also going to make a still meaningful amount of gains.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I love the attack against Spain, but you could probably attack France at the same time too, and then just try blitzkrieging into England. And especially since you practically border them already with Catawba, I think that you could just completely decimate them here if you really start pouring your units in and really focusing on like getting into Illinois, maybe even getting into Erie shortly after that, and then just trying to flank them down south so that you because as soon as you cut off Jamestown, the other two are just gonna fall shortly after. Or I guess maybe not St. Augustine because there's a lot of fleet pressure that England could add on there. But yeah, I totally see
Mm,
Jamestown, Catawba going very quickly.
indeed. But now instead, the Cherokee support on the French unit, because France tapped Seneca, it was completely unnecessary. So now instead, what's happened is England has a unit in Catawba and in Tutilo, and Cherokee's probably just going to get forced out in the fall. And that's Ute Shoshone down on their most important center that's putting pressure on England.
I would imagine if Missouri supports Cherokee, then everything's going to be fine. Do you think that? Oh, yeah.
It depends on what
Which one gets
happens, like
into
who makes
Erie?
peace with who.
Right. Because
That's fair. If England works with France, then
I think England's going to be more concerned about getting St. Augustine back.
right. I'm that is true as well. I hadn't considered that. What I was thinking was that Spain, having just tried to make some sort of peace deal with Ute Shoshone, now seeing that Ute Shoshone is moving down against them, may just use Muskogee to support Ute Shoshone out of Cherokee.
hmm.
Of course, England may also just want to retake St. Augustine, and Spain may just try and hold St. Augustine instead. But it's not exactly a clean tactic on Ute Shoshone's part because it means that there's a lot more risk at play with how they've approached this turn now. They still do have good
Mhm.
position.
Everyone is fighting everyone.
Right. They still do have good
Mhm.
position against France. Like they're moving in to take Ojibwe and put dots on thereafter on places like Cree and Fort Detroit. But we also see them not really putting a ton of pressure on Inuits. They're rather just trying to sit there and peace out with Inuits from the looks of it. Like, look at this.
Meme core.
Team Core.
Mhm.
Come on. Come on, Yoshishone. You are second place as far as VSCC goes right now. We really need to see you start to leverage that and get some explosive growth. There are 3 years total, and if you want to win, you need to double your supply center count still.
Mhm. Absolutely, absolutely. There's still a lot more to go, and you just cannot be making these slow plays. You
Mhm.
just do not have the time for it.
Exactly. Uh, let's just keep scrolling down then when we look at the Caribbean, and that's a lot of fingers right there. Like little
It's a
spider
lot of English
legs.
fleets moving to South America.
Yeah, it's about what we expected. England's gonna start trying to contest places like Panama and Cartagena. They're gonna try and wrest those last few dots away from the Spanish. But the way they
Yeah.
approached it is a little interesting. They successfully ended up blocking Windward Passage, which is a good call on their part. But they aren't, despite how much they're moving south, it's not as much pressure as it looks like. They've got two on Belize, but so does Spain. Spain has just moved a unit to Honduras, so because Bay of Panama bounced, England's not in there, which means they're not contesting Panama or Cartagena enough for it to matter. While it looks like an aggressive
I
move,
mean,
it's progress on England's part, but it's not enough to be meaningful yet.
I think you're still pretty happy about this position as England.
I'm-
You get Barbados,
True, true.
and you can cover pretty much everything. They do have to be a little bit careful that the Dutch don't sneak into Guadeloupe.
Right.
That is a very fun connection.
That's a
But
nice little tiny one.
otherwise,
Yeah,
I
I mean,
think
it
England
was
is
meant
just going to
for.
continue dominating the Caribbean, and there's no counterplay. I think.
England did
Yeah,
move
I mean,
to Mona
once you
Passage,
have that
so
much control,
sorry, Downpour, you were
you go
saying?
on. No, no, no. It's fine. I was just saying how once you get that much control over the Caribbean, there's very little else you can do to stop it. But yeah, what were you saying?
I was just going to mention that England had moved to Mona Passage, so they may be trying to protect Guadalupe, and even if no one sneaks in there, they're probably going to be able to handle it quite well. But yeah, indeed, Caribbean is not going bad. It's not that it's falling apart for them, it's just that progress is slower than they may need. I think England is still
Mm-hmm.
doing quite well. If they can manage to continue their assault into the French forces here, manage to make ground and stabilize, keep pushing against Spain and perhaps even the Netherlands and what remains of Poland over here. This this area alone may be able to help secure England the win, but like we said before, we need to
Yeah.
see England stabilize in the Indian Peninsula for it to truly matter.
Yeah, I think at this point, I don't think anyone's going to reach BSEC, so you're going to be playing for board top.
I think England
We'll
may.
see in the fall moves if Ute stabs, but Ute needs to stab Inuit like now to
Yeah,
have any chance.
like I said, it's a crucial turn. We need to see that explosiveness start coming out now. And while England is positioning themselves to still have a lot of centers that they can gain over the next few turns, I'm worried about Yushishone. I'm worried a bit about. Excuse me. I think the coffee's trying to burp its way up. My apologies. We need to see what Sofavit and Sweden end up doing and how they stand. But aside from that, I don't know who else may be able to cleanly contest. Let's just keep looking at and see if we can spot any other notable forces. Uh,
Yeah.
Aymara's just
And
supporting Spain
as
in
we're
at this
looking at
point.
as we are looking at this map, we've just been pinged that the next year will be the last year, so we'll only get 6 years instead of 7.
Really?
Right.
So now we're really playing for board top.
No kidding.
I'm a little surprised by that. We still have an hour and 45 minutes in the allotted time. I'm a little surprised about that.
Yeah, I'm guessing they just don't want to go like minutes over, but unfortunate.
I suppose that's fair,
That's
but
fair, but
nonetheless,
always sides you see.
yeah, we'll have to see how things go. Some more cleanup here. Portugal's trying to move and make a little bit of their situation. Mapuche's trying to wrest back what they can. Aymara at this point is just fully supporting Spain into their own stuff, so I wonder how many of these. I wonder if there's a bit of a checkout going on by some of these players here. I'm wondering if that's why we're seeing so many draw votes as well.
hmm I mean, very likely. This really is a game of endurance, and
Yep,
if you are one of these powers who's just gotten beaten down so much, you probably just don't have the mindset to continue this, and
Mhm.
I can understand that.
for sure.
I do still think that we're going to have a fair amount to play for, as we said, though.
hmm
All right. I don't think there's too much of note to talk about with South America, and as we're looking, a lot of this just levels out into nothing of consequence happens.
Right. I mean, there's some very odd moves going on between Amara and Spain that I found quite interesting, but I guess since Amara helped out Spain into Huarte, they're just reciprocating now.
I'm imagining that's what's happening. It really does just feel like it feels a little bit like Aymara may be checked out at this point and is just trying to do funny moves for the funny move's sake. Mapuche, of course,
Yeah.
is very upset with this fact, considering they had some reasonable chance to keep plowing on and continue on until Aymara stepped in their way.
Yeah, Mapuche has
Mhm.
fully pivoted out of the South Atlantic Ocean and is going to be full focusing Amara the rest of the game, I think.
It certainly looks like it. They've lost just about everything in South Pacific. In that region over there, they just have the units sitting there. And South Atlantic is pulling out at this point. There's not a ton that's left for them to do except try and enact their revenge, I suppose.
Yeah.
If we
Mhm.
Let's move on over to Africa then, as we take things in. We're seeing a lot of what we expected, and also a lot of the funny. And let's be real, you love to see the funny. Era's looking cooks, not going to have anywhere to retreat. What do? Put it on Madagascar and make it France's problem. Might as well.
Guaranteed dot, by the way.
Yup.
But that's the worst part is that Barra wasn't confirmed. You could have literally just held it there, and or Ajuran couldn't have stopped you because you were tapping Mutapa. But I
True.
guess they were. Yeah, I guess they were expecting Murabi to support Mutapa and Zubairi, but still, it's not the end of the
Yeah.
world.
Bit unfortunate that it would have worked out in their favor, but hey, funny wins, you know?
This works out really good for
Mhm.
France or for Portugal because Mutapa gets forced.
Actually, wait. Yeah, so that means Beira or Mutapa gets forced disbanded, and then Beira can
And
just
they
be
can retake.
recaptured. This is
Incredible.
Oh, that.
really funny.
All right. Wow. Works out in Portugal's favor then. Well done to them. Unfortunate for Ogeron.
Yeah.
You see them trying to move
Hmm.
south to really do anything they can. Congo at this point is even trying to take centers back from Ogeron. That's unfortunate.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, this is what happens. You push so far west with Aegeron, and then
Mhm.
you're now starting to realize, wait, my units spawn all the way over here, but they have to go all the way over here to actually fight Congo. It's just
Yeah.
so far away and not worth the investment.
Ugh. I think I said earlier that I am of the opinion that Ogeron may be the worst power of 25 at the current standing. I,
Yeah,
yeah,
but
I yeah, I don't like Ajuran as a power at the moment.
if they would have just went Saitama though, then their game would have been amazing because I
mhm,
know
Exactly.
I was really loving them early on.
absolutely.
They had such a good starting. You know, Abyssinia was just being beaten down. Portugal was just having a hard time because Congo was at their throats too. But Ajuran, instead of deciding to just gang up on Abyssinia with the Ottomans, you know, somehow the Ottomans still came back. And yeah, now they are just back to square one, but at least they have some SCs against the Congo, which are granted slowly starting to drift back the other way.
Indeed.
Yeah, that's the fun part about this map. A lot of this board is still pretty unsolved about which power has to do what.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's really
And
unfortunate as well. Sorry, just to continue along the. I want to finish this point about Ogeron here because, especially after year two, I would have counted both Congo and Abyssinia really far behind, and Ogeron could have taken a great advantage against both of those. And we saw a decent push from them against Congo, and then Congo decided to just flip and fully let Portugal be the ones to benefit from them. But it's unfortunate that we really didn't see Ogeron benefit from the collapse of what was going on around them, and now they're turning on him.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Nonetheless,
It's a
though,
shame to see, but um it is what it is.
yeah. I don't
these
necessarily think Ajuran is a bad power. Uh, as of this map, there is still only one power that hasn't been in a DPDD, so I think we kind of have to say that one's the worst power. But
I
we're not
suppose.
I
going to
mean,
say any names of nations.
Yes, of course.
We all know. If you know, you know.
Uh, gotta love funny cores because funny cores. Most of Africa, it's just kind of dirtling out and standing out again. It's really unfortunate that Ogeron wasn't able to capitalize because imagine if we see Ogeron in the position that Abyssinia is currently in, and if these Abyssinian units were Ogeron units, that would be really incredible to see. But we're not getting there, unfortunately.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Uh,
And
Yeah.
Abyssinia is moving to Asa, which is interesting. I wonder where that unit's planning on going next.
I
Money
mean,
Convoy?
probably just there to contest Warsongali in the event that Aegeron didn't keep to their side of things. But I guess they wouldn't have even been able to force it anyways because their Makella fleet isn't tapping Gulf of Tandora or anything. So if Aegeron just walked in, then it would have just been a free center. But of course, no, they had to core Mara because that is their biggest worry in this position.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and now you have Safavids on your shore.
Yup.
Oh, not just that, but Warsongali, you know, congrats. Now you can't take that anymore.
We'll get to
Yeah.
Safavids later. Let's finish off West Africa here.
We'll look over that way.
Mhm,
Thunderdome. It's
Thunderdome's
Thunderdoming.
gonna Thunderdome.
Poland
mhm.
gets forced out of Mali, but they get into the Gambia. Portugal attempts to try and contest St. Louis, but Poland can just cover it fairly effectively, and Congo sneaks behind England, coming out of Great Andra.
Beautiful.
Love to see it.
Yeah. England also loses Cormanton, which is unfortunate for them.
Indeed.
Mhm.
Lose your core in a very solid area.
Right. Technically, England's just lost both of the cores that they had. I wouldn't necessarily call this area solid, but it is a source of dots. And again, as England, right now in England's position, England really wants to maintain every dot they can on this board.
Yeah, every dot matters at this point if you're England. I am
Yeah, they're
curious to
just
see where
really.
Poland retreats Mali.
Oh yeah, because if it's to Bosa, then England's gonna have a very rough time. But personally, I expect something more conservative from them to help go after Portugal some more. But
Yeah. I
yeah,
would
I
go to
mean,
Ouagadougou and take Niani if I'm Poland here.
mhm,
Definitely a solid
mhm,
option there. Retreat is really
Like, sure,
unfortunate.
like you lose out on Mali, but you can take Niani in return.
Mhm.
So
right.
Looking up a little bit
overall,
as
not
well.
terrible for Poland.
It's not. Well, Poland is doing well in this area. It's really unfortunate they haven't been able to stabilize in their other spheres.
What is West Africa's a mess?
It always is. All right. Uh, Spain is once again cleaning up more of Portugal. Portugal is realizing that they messed up and is trying to push in again. France is still advancing on Spain. I honestly was expecting them to flip flop again. They kind of did because they backed away from Austria again, and Austria pushed in again.
Uh,
How many times has this happened
yeah.
now? Like, how many times has this
I
unit?
don't want to count these things. I don't want to think about them. I don't want to look at Europe, the map that I'm currently looking at, and see this many cores and hold orders. What is going on?
Why does Poland still have Krakow?
Welcome
Why
to
are they
Blitz.
coring Krakow?
Why
Well,
is Baltic Sea? Why are Baltic Sea in the Sound? Surely this just was like orders not put in time.
I'm so glad that you all are now being welcomed into how Blitz goes because this is just how Blitz goes. The cores,
Dude,
the
I'm taking
holds,
a streak.
it's really unfortunate, but part of having the shorter time limit just means a lot less ends up happening. And if you're not on top of it, you will do things like hold North Sea on a really important turn where you need to be pressuring England if you want to be making advantages. Or sitting there in Krakow
Forget
instead of
holding North Sea, Baltic Sea in the Sound. Egregious.
yeah, you could have had Brandenburg this turn. It was
You could have had
yours.
Brandenburg and Bremen.
It was yours if you want it. And instead, you're just kind of sitting there with them. I will say though, it's not completely nothing from Sweden. We are seeing the first signs of them trying to get blast dots from Russia, which they will need if they want to try and do any amount of contesting. But especially with the game ending in just another few turns, I really don't know if it's enough. Especially with how much it's just sitting around with these hold orders.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's so
unfortunate.
many going on here. It's crazy. I mean,
Yeah,
at least the Austrians get Pressburg because the Ottomans decided not to tap Trieste. They decided, or Poland decided not to tap Silesia, and Ottoman or Austria just got in for no good reason. But yeah, there's just so much that is going on here. Is that what I think it is? I think the Russians are losing Warsaw. I think that maybe the Swedes are pushing into Poland despite not having anything besides those two armies.
It's
yeah,
working
they're
out.
pushing Warsaw and Helsingfors, notably moving east.
Like
Yeah.
Sweden's not doing bad here. They're getting Warsaw. They're gonna get Novgorod for not Novgorod. Arkangels is free though. They have a contest on.
Yeah,
Right.
They have a contest on Brandenburg. They're getting control of Bremen. They can maybe even possess further. If they get lucky with a check, they may be able to take something like Oxford or Edinburgh from England. Like they have options. It's just that they're moving so slow, and especially with those early game fleets just sitting there in the Baltic, not doing anything productive at the moment. Really don't know if
Yeah.
they're gonna,
Sweden is not doing bad. They just could have been doing a heck of a lot better this phase.
especially on the turn where you
Absolutely.
need to be explosive.
Mhm. And yeah, they could have just taken Brandenburg here, which I think they were trying to go for, but just didn't have the time to enter orders for.
Mhm.
But that would have also been really nice.
Yeah. Nonetheless, I do still think Sweden's going to be one of the powers at the very top of the board at the end of this game. I just don't think that they're going to
Yeah,
have enough to be able
they're not
to.
passing England.
They're not passing England. I
Yeah.
don't even know if they're going to be able to contest England within 25% at this point, but we'll have to see if England ends up falling that hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Sweden's
think
position
that
won't crumble. They'll be like within the top 5 or something. I just think they could have been pushing for top 2.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And with a couple of holds this phase, with 1 year to go, I think it slows down their progress a lot.
Right. Right.
A few other points to note: Austria also doing well, also a power we want to towards the top of the board, but especially with Ottomans able to stabilize in their region and being able to put pressure and forcing Austria to answer these units in Pressburg, Austria is likely not going to level out. They're just going to be a few too slow in order to get in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, trade Pressburg for Split's not terrible if you're Austria.
But
And
that's
with
like
the help Spain into Ionian Sea,
it,
Ottomans still has a lot of problems
it's
to solve.
it's not bad. Don't get me wrong, but like that's the exact trade that they made last turn was split for Pressburg. So it's just a whole lot of not much.
Oh yeah, and it was my bad earlier because I did dog on them a little bit for not tapping Trieste, but in all fairness, they did get spliff, so I spoke too soon.
It ended up working out for them. Like that split unit is just getting popped.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But let's take a look and scroll right a bit and look at our Safavids here.
Safavids is exploding this turn. They're doing very well.
I think that they are making solid progress. As we said, they've started to wrap around and start pressing some of these Ogeron centers and forcing them to
Yeah.
start to try and make answers for that. They're still in possession.
I hate the Tbilisi core.
Yeah, Tbilisi core.
That's
It's not great. Maybe
it's fine because you don't want Trebizond getting there.
right. You need to hold.
But
You need to hold it there, and the extra support order is not necessary, I guess. But
it's fine.
eh,
I'm not happy about it, but it's like not a terrible hold.
right.
Mm-hmm.
I
It's
like
it's
I
not
like
bad.
them getting into Persian Gulf and putting 2 on Riyadh.
Indeed. It looks like they're going to be able to take Muscat and Riyadh this turn, which is good. While they're also trying to, they now also have 2 fleets that are testing Makra, and they're just going to take that unless Ageron decides
I
to.
wonder if they're gonna save Muscat for later and try
Maybe
and go after Mara or something like that.
they definitely could try for it. And Muscat is all but a free dot at this point. I wonder how much that
Yeah.
they value the builds, though, especially because we're seeing one other thing from Safavids, that being that they're finally starting to press against their border they have with Mughals. I think that's where they're going to try and get the last big chunk of their dots. They're in Turkestan now, and they're going to try and maybe even coordinate with Russia here to get Yuzgan popped. Maybe. Perhaps this Siberian Tundra unit is just a rogue move from Russia that Safik wasn't expecting. Oh, Kiva
I don't know if
and
they're gonna pop it, but they could take it.
Kiva and
Yeah, I was
Uzgan
about to
connect. I didn't even realize that. That's a shared border.
Yes.
That's literally forced.
Mm-hmm.
As long as Safavids need to be careful about Russia up north, but I don't think there's anything to fear because Ali Muli isn't even an SC. So if Russia decides to force you out of it, then you just go into the Siberian tundra here and are happy with life.
Exactly. Russia's not making any meaningful progress against you, and while you're not making too much meaningful progress back, you have another avenue here if you push against the Mughals. So,
Mhm.
Yeah, I think if you're Safavids, you're getting Trebizond pushed away, and then you're gonna move Tbilisi up to push against Russia.
I think that's a very solid plan there, because then you actually have some pressure you can put on Krakow with another unit there. And you,
Yeah. Kharkov.
yeah, Kharkov. I'm sorry, I've been saying Krakow. That is, again, please do not trust the American in how they are pronouncing these place names.
Yeah, I think Safavids is positioned very well to start climbing.
Yeah, I love the explosive potential that they're playing. This makes me wish that we were playing for a bit longer as well, because I think if we were playing for 7 years total instead of 6, I think Safavit has a very reasonable
I think
chance.
Safavids would have had a chance.
Yeah, I still do think they have a lot of good explosive growth potential. They're running out of Ottoman centers they can reasonably take, but they have some good Russian centers.
They have Arabian centers now.
They have Arabian centers they're contesting. They're going to start pushing against the Mughal line, and that's a good 4 or 5 dots right there that they're going to be able to start contesting. I think those builds
Yeah,
are
and
very
if
important.
Safavids doesn't convoy Keshem to Riyadh, I'm going to be very sad.
It would indeed.
You don't want to take Riyadh with the fleet. You could totally take it with the army, and it'll be glorious. Come on, Safavids.
And then you can start
Yeah.
putting more pressure on the centers that Ogeron is just holding in this little corner over here. And
Yeah,
that,
Army Riyadh is so good.
that would be great to
Mhm.
see.
I believe.
Oh,
Yeah, and it gives you more pressure upon Mara, so that just seems like by far the best thing. Keshem, Riyadh, Rushok supports, and then your current Arabian Sea unit goes to Muscat, claims that back, and yeah, you
I
just
don't even
have
know if it
all the
has to
pressure
take
you want.
Muscat this phase. I think it could wait for next year.
it could wait,
True.
but
Depends on how many builds you're getting this year. You want to
yeah.
build like Bukhara, Herat. You want to build
Mhm.
everywhere
Right.
against the Mughals.
You want to make sure that you have enough
Yeah, and
armies that you can barrel into Mughals so that you can get that game.
Mhm. And
Speaking
especially
of
since
Mughals,
Rustock can't do anything before the end of the game.
Mhm.
Far from the wrong option. You just need to make sure that Portugal isn't building there to spite you, but that would probably be the funny move.
Yeah, I actually really
like
like how
Portugal could build there, but you're still gonna have enough units in the area that it's not gonna make a difference.
I really
Are
like
you
how
sure?
Like you're
Safed is
Because
probably building
approaching
the
this.
fleet in Bandar Abbas anyways, so
Mhm.
it would just be more annoying than anything else.
Yeah,
I really like
I
how
was just
Safed
trying
is
to
approaching
argue
this
that.
endgame. It's looking really great for them.
Hmm.
Sorry, I don't mean to keep
Yeah, they
interrupting.
have really good odds. Oh no, no worries, no worries. But yeah, I'm just really curious where this goes because isn't England still in the lead by a very good amount, in terms
20%
of
right now, yeah.
USCQ?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's going to be hard to topple no matter what. So everyone just needs to find some way to go against England here if they even want to manage to make this more equal, and that involves Ute just needs to be pushing against someone, gaining some kind of SCs. And as long as England is at least losing something here, then there is still some chance that they can claw it back here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the difference is
And
that
unfortunately for the board, England and India has stabilized.
that is quite
Oh.
unfortunate, and we will take a look at this here. I do just want to say real quick is that while I think England is doing well and they're stabilizing, I don't. England has a lot to still be very concerned about, especially over in North America and over here if things don't go in
Yeah.
their favor. I really do think that Softwood has the potential to gain a lot of centers very soon, though.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If this was like 2 years left in the game, I think Safavids is a dark horse to snipe first.
Indeed.
Right.
All right.
With 1 year left, I think it's a lot more difficult, but
Yeah, it's really quite close, but commendable plays by the Softwood player and to the English players as well.
can
Let's
we talk
cover.
about this Raja core and how much it sucks?
Oh, abso-frickin-lutely we can.
Oh, oh
Why Mughals?
Let's.
God.
It's bad. We all know it's bad. Don't get me wrong, but like,
Walk into the center, there's no reason not to.
I really want to
Mhm.
also point out support holding Hyderabad. And like, Gondwana is not doing much. Don't get me wrong,
Support holding's fine.
but I really want to see Hyderabad trying to make work. For example, if you see, I have Hyderabad support Kandim into Bilapur. You can have Delhi just try and work in to surround Surat, and then it's the spring turn map that we're still looking at. So you can still pop Surat out, so it doesn't end up taking it.
Yeah,
Wait,
they just popped
here's a
Asia
funny
for
move.
this phase. It's fine. I would have liked to
Yeah,
see
I
Delhi
mean,
go somewhere else.
there
Like,
is some
maybe
really
North.
funny.
We keep
Sorry,
doing this.
sorry.
Sorry.
Um, there are some really funny lines here, with letting England into Surat because Mughals could kick them out in the fall. They go to Baruch, but you can go into Gulf of Combat and then from Surat into Baruch, and then now look at the position again where if if England gets into Ahmedabad, then you can just also kick them out of there as well. You just need to make sure you have some unit in Delhi to stop them from retreating there. But I can see a line where England gets all the way to Sinda, all the way over there, just because of repeatedly kicking them out and then chasing them down the line.
It would be very
Yeah.
funny. Although in this case, Biafra is
Unfortunately, it's an army, so
yeah. In this case, Biafra is just popped, and Mughals aren't dealing with it anymore. But they're not. It's not taking a new center or anything, so it's not really breaking the line that they have to break through if they really want to try and take these last few English centers.
yeah, Mughals
Mhm.
were a lot more concerned about this fly on the wall than I think was necessary.
And England, in return, is going to get into Andhra Coast because Ayutthaya is going to boot them out of Gulf of Ceylon, but then England's just going to follow behind them. Gulf of Ceylon just
Interesting.
I think that that is something you are really happy to see if you are England because you're not really being threatened too much else. And I think the Ayutthaya fleet in Andhra Coast was really tying your armies up. I mean, they self-bounced Penaroo over it. Granted, I don't think that was necessary, but still,
Mhm.
there's must have been something better you could have been doing.
It's important to note as well
I
that,
think you're scared that Pegu gets convoyed. Obviously, that definitely doesn't happen.
especially with
Yeah.
the fact that Mughals is flipped here, that's not happening. It's a semi-reasonable
Yeah,
fear.
Mughals and Ming have moved in on Ayu.
It only
Mhm.
took them a few too many years, but it happened. So props to them.
Right.
Ayu in particular is really going to struggle to this Mughal fleet in Andaman Sea. That's just going to hold them
That
hostage.
sucks.
It gets
Tavoy guaranteed.
Yeah, Tavoy is guaranteed
Mhm.
for them, and they convoyed Fong Rong off the peninsula.
Yeah,
Like,
so now you
Yeah.
you lose Hanoi.
you have to have known that Ming
Pain.
was going to go for Hanoi. Did you not?
They built the
I mean,
army there last
yeah,
turn.
It was
yeah. I
just
mean,
last
we
turn.
thought it was obvious. Dude, this feels so much like Blitz 2. Just why is Ming doing well against Ayutthaya? I mean, sorry, I would mention Blitz 3, except I was GMing, so I literally have no clue what was going on during the game. But yeah, I
And you
mean,
lose Ava this
this
turn because you could cut Landa.
exactly,
Unless you want to
exactly.
guess that it's not looking too hot if you're Ayutthaya.
It really is looking quite unfortunate here. And even if you look at what's happening with everything else, like Spain's
This
self-bouncing in
conflict,
Manila, Tokugawa is moving out away from just flooding north, literally putting everything in North Pacific.
oh
Like,
my god,
Mhm.
every single North Pacific is in.
are you that worried about Spain now?
Not
Because
one gets bounced. Spain cuts one out of Galapagos, but the Tokugawa Death Ray is fully operational at this point.
suppose so.
Yeah.
Let's just cover these units here. Russia supports themselves in their own center because they're worried about it being taken. I suppose so.
This is those are fine tactics.
Yeah, it's not bad. You probably could have just support held, but then
You
you are
do
worried
lose
about
Karakorum at this phase because Qing gets Buryatia in,
yeah.
so you
Ryatsa
just put
to
3 on it if you're Ming.
Ryatsa to Yenisei, I do not understand though. Like that could have. I feel like you could do something a lot more productive with that unit, and now it's not really contesting anything reasonable.
Yeah, you could have gone Yakutsk there with
Mhm.
Buryatia supporting it, and then you have 2 on Bratsk. That would
Right,
have been nice. Instead, Yakutsk tries to do an illegal order.
right.
Yeah.
That's illegal. Oh,
Yeah, those
Yes.
don't border. Not
ah,
that it matters, everything bounces
yeah.
anyways, but
It works
yeah,
out for them, but
effectively just a
still,
hold. Inuit slips in behind Tokugawa and Chukchi's.
that's very funny that they
That's
managed to
fun,
slip in.
and that's guaranteed to stay. Even
Oh
more fun.
God.
Oh no, it
Oh.
doesn't. Chukchi C bounces. No.
Wait, that's a bounce? Oh my,
Yeah,
that's unfortunate. That's really unfortunate.
cursed edge of the map. Inuit, no.
Absolutely cursed. And down here,
Mhm.
cleaning up, Ayutthaya making moves against Spain. Netherlands is trying to fight back,
Dutch
but
moving against Ayu.
yeah.
I mean, but still not a ton that can be done there.
Right.
Because Banjarmasin was forced, and maybe you can reclaim it. That does look like something that can be done, but the Dutch are also super concerned about themselves because Spain also has a really good attack going
Mhm.
against them here.
Yep.
I think it was the same attack they had like a year and a half ago, but it is still a good attack.
Yeah. I think
What?
Safavids are
I
definitely the
think,
big winner of this phase.
yeah, I think when I look at this map, every time I see something that's going well for power, I flip to the other side of their border and I see it going very poorly. Mughals seem to be doing all right and they're stabilizing, but they also have this Safavid threat that's now really going to start exploding against them. Ayutthaya is starting to get the island of Borneo and start wresting control away from Spain as Mughals and Ming are starting to pressure in and push against them. Ogeron's making progress down south, but are also losing centers to Congo, of all people. France is gaining these Spanish centers and losing more to Austria again. I really just do feel like a lot of the players are not able to fully stabilize everything, which is really unfortunate because it's boiling down to those players who have a lot of centers already or are able to give that explosive potential. Which I think at this point it's really just England and Sofovitz who have really shown that they have the potential to truly capitalize on their position.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I think it depends a lot in the fall on Utes. If Ute Shoshone
Mm-hmm.
can pull off the miracle, I think they could be in the running. Otherwise, I think it's going to be between England and Safavids for board top.
We'll have to see because
Yeah.
Yuchishon still does have some good takes, but they're also showing that they're not willing to take some moves. They're not putting enough pressure against Inuits, and they're not putting as much pressure on England as they probably need to be.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But let's move on to the fall then and see how it plays out. I imagine the last bit that we have here of the game is we're probably not going to have as much to cover for these last few turns. That's why I keep saying, by the way, it's perfectly fine that we're behind because we will catch up. The last few years are always going to be is this person going to play it out? Yes, no. And while there are some surprises that definitely can't happen, we need to hope and see that we're going to see some of these players like you making the decisions they need to be making, and players like Sofovitz following through and showing their explosiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Look at the
With that, fall moves.
look at the fall. I shall we look at Yuchon first?
Sure.
I mean,
They don't. These all look arranged in the north.
in the north, yeah, this it's all pretty much either this is some really good guesswork from Inuit or it's arranged. And considering that Yuchon moved out of Gulf of Lalanx, I'm siding arranged. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's really unfortunate because I do think that these extra few dots, like if let's count the Inuit dots, just like Chipewyan and westward that they have. That's one from Chipewyan. There's Satu, Uchon, Denaina. You could probably start contesting Yupik and Alayutes with your fleets that you have here, and even maybe pick up Nome. That's 7 centers right there that you could realistically put a lot of pressure on if you decided to make a force against Inuit. And that's 7 centers that's going to put you really close to your end goal, considering 7 centers is nearly half of what you need in order to reach VSCC. Instead, we're seeing
Yeah.
them having some arranged moves and not making any progress. It's really unfortunate. Their options
Yeah.
against France and Spain, though, seem to be looking a little better. Sort of. Let's look at France first,
Yeah, they get into Ojibwe and they help Inuit into Cree.
which is fine.
Cherokee decides to do nothing this phase, which I hate because he could have taken Illinois.
Gesundheit. Yeah,
Pain and suffering.
that's really bad. You could have supported yourself into Illinois. You could have even tried to work something out with Spain to disrupt England's holding of Catawba or Tutilo. It's not
I mean,
great.
if you're Ute, you're still happy because Saint Augustine holds.
Yeah, St. Augustine gets done nothing. It's not disrupting you. England just gets it back.
Because
Or no, because Spain taps it in Catawba, yeah.
yeah, because England for whatever reason decides to support Ute into Mexico City instead of supporting Florida
Yes.
Current into St. Augustine.
Yeah. I mean, this is what
Spain kind of just wins the guess here.
Spain did do pretty well. This is what we were trying to say about you sending this many units to the Spanish border. Like they put 7, 8 units on their border that they have with Spain to take these 3 centers. And congratulations, you got Mexico City, Saltillo, and Chitamacha. You're not going any further. You really needed some of those units to.
Hawaii is moving the wrong direction, I think.
Oh, it moved
Oh,
in.
absolutely.
What? Not contesting anything. Come on, you're
That-
so close.
That Hawaiian unit needs to be moving up.
You're so close. Look, if you move it to North Equatorial, you're contesting Alaiutes. You can have Gulf of Alant start to push in as well if you want to move that in position to take Yupik. You could have gotten that this turn as well. Ugh. You're so close.
Mhm.
You are right there. You just gotta see the lines.
Right.
I do want it when the players found out that.
Yeah, I mean, they're just so heavily tied with
Okay.
Inuits that they just don't want to stab them, but it's like it's the end of the game. They're just so much more powerful than them. You just need to go for it.
Mhm.
You know, maybe try explaining it or apologizing later, but you're in the end game now. They are not, and you just need to realize that and push towards the end.
I would even argue that
Yeah, I
considering.
think.
Sorry.
Yeah. So the players found out that 1647 would be the last year of the game after fall moves.
Okay.
So it's possible that these players are still operating under the assumption that 1648 is the last year.
It's possible that's what
Okay,
they're
that's
intending
fair.
to do.
Even still, I would be stabbing at you at this phase.
Absolutely.
But anyways,
Yes.
poor France.
Yeah. I would even argue real quick that if you're usually shown in this position and you allowed Inuits to get a large portion of the Athabasca benefits and spoils and are helping them elsewhere against France, you could even go to them at this point and say, hey, this game's nearly over. I have the potential to stop England from soloing and being able to contest them, but I really need your centers to do that. And maybe you could even talk them Inuit into giving you some of their centers if you're not going to outright try and fight them for it. But I don't know if Youth Shoshone intends to do that. I'm wondering if they're just intending to let the board play out it is and end up still in a good position. Still, I'd wager top 5, top 6, but 5th or 6th is a fair amount different from 2nd or 3rd, maybe even 1st.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think this is actually a rougher turn for England than it first seems. They lose the guess in Newfoundland.
Mhm.
They go to St. John's and France goes to St. Anthony.
It is quite.
They could have taken Tadoussac. Instead, they put 3 on Papina Choice. And they lose Port Royal, which
Yeah.
was guaranteed anyways.
They lose Port Royal and St. Anthony's, but they're still getting Intosity, Papin and Choice, Villa Marie. It's not great.
Yeah.
But it's still positive.
And
I wager that they will be
it
capable
seems like
of making.
Negative, no?
No, they're getting 3 in this unit, in this area, are they not? Because they hold Villa Marie.
I guess it depends on what you count St. Augustine as. Because they gain 1, 2, 3. They lose 1, 2, 3, 4.
And the part that I don't understand, why is Inuit supporting England here into Papa Inkos? Don't you want France there? Because France prevents England from just surrounding you in Naskapi. And not to mention that England is the top of the board right now, so it makes sense why you would want to keep them in line at least. You literally just took Naskapi from them. It's still red.
It makes no sense.
It's
But it's fine.
It's some diplomacy, that's what it is.
Yeah, it is.
Alright. Let's take a look at England home center then, shall we? And see how things are holding. That's a lot of holds. I mean, I guess you want Plymouth to hold to be able to take that.
Yeah. North Sea tap, very important here. It means you keep Iceland Basin.
Very good for them in that instance, yes. Yeah, I think Sweden's early fleets into the Baltic Sea just not being able to find their way out in time is going to impact their ability to really put harm towards England's battle plan here. I think England's going to be able to manage themselves over here pretty well. Not gain much more, but still have the ability to. Well, they will still be able to hold everything, and like they're going to keep all the home isles. They're going to keep Spitsbergen and Iceland. They're not going to lose much more over here.
Mhm. Mhm.
We also
Yeah, I
see.
mean, there's
Oh my, Austria.
or you can.
Sorry, Austria is in Dijon and Marseille, and they're running out of coal and
Yeah,
letting Netherlands
France.
backfill them. How much retreating is France going to do this game?
I I've said it since the beginning. Austria was just gonna charge west, and since then, France has gone after the Dutch, gone back against Austria, gone back against the Dutch, went against Spain, then back against Austria, and now it looks like back against Spain. They have not made up their minds over the past 6 years.
And if you think about it, they could have had Strasbourg this turn. France could have supported Poland into Strasbourg, and they have it. It's theirs.
Well, no, because Freiburg support holds.
Ah, true. I'm
But I
getting
guess
ahead of
Paris could have.
myself.
Paris could have done
Yeah,
something instead of try and take Nantes back.
right.
All of
They
this
were
happens
expect.
because Nantes tries to get sniped. Like if
Mhm.
you tap
And
Dijon, you keep Marseille. If you support something into Strasbourg, you get Strasbourg.
yeah, I think at the end of the day, they should have just tapped Dijon, called it a night because yeah, that's how things are going. You know, you either say Marseille or you hope for Strasbourg, but yeah, as you were saying, the Freiburg unit just support holds. You know, it really was a 50-50, but because they never went for Strasbourg or trying to save Marseille, nothing happened. So they had a 50-50 and they chose the third option.
Third option of lose everything.
Yep.
Exactly.
Austria does lose
Uh,
Brandenburg, but picks up Krakow, so
yes.
works
And
out
they
for them.
hold Trieste.
They are going to hold Trieste this turn, yes.
Yeah. Interesting tactics from the Ottomans.
Yeah.
End of that
Ottomans.
sentence.
And end of that sentence. No need to look further
Could have
right
tapped
on the
Adriatic
board.
and backfilled Sarajevo without support, but it's
Yeah.
fine.
Again,
Sweden with the
I have a sneaking suspicion that
Sweden also has some tactical mishaps, but that's also fine.
yeah, I have a sneaking suspicion that a fair part of the reason that we are ending this game very soon now. Actually, like we are, they have finished up with spring of the final year. They're on their final turn just about now. So I imagine part of that is just a fair amount of people are about done, which is really unfortunate because
Mhm.
those who are not done, and by those who are not done, I basically just mean Sofovit, really could use that extra year.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean Sweden still goes +3 this turn. Sweden still has some chances to try and snipe more than like a third place. Unfortunately for Sweden, they don't cover Riga. This is just a loss of
Ooh,
a
yeah.
guess for Sweden.
That's an unfortunate one right there, indeed.
Yeah, Russia wins a guess here. They go for Riga. Uh, Sweden could have held
Mhm.
everything with Wilno to Riga and then supporting one of Courland or Warsaw to Wilno.
Yeah,
Right.
Instead, Sweden guesses 3 on Wilno. So it's not terrible.
it's
You
one
could
of those
just build
guess.
Narva and Helsingfors and be fine, but
It's just a
a bit
lost guess. It's
unlucky.
Mhm.
unfortunate. Yeah, I think
Right.
Sweden is
But
doing very well, but it's just too slow to really make a
Yeah.
difference. They are going to finish quite near the top of the board, though.
Yeah, and unfortunately for
mhm.
them, Russia's pulling everything back off of Safovit's front and towards
Yeah,
Arkhangelsk.
let's take a look at Sofovitz then, shall we? I
Oh, Mughals.
hold on. Let me real quick.
Oh
I'm
god.
gonna drink some water. Clear my throat. Why are you pouring Uzgan?
I mean, it's lost anyways. Safovitz and Russia are
Yeah.
working together, so both of them support holding each other. The results in both lost anyways.
I know, but still, don't do this. Try and make your way around. If you know you're gonna lose it, well then, hey, why don't you try and do something a little bit more interesting and say support yourself into Turkestan? Would it work? No.
Supports get cuts. Uh,
Yeah, but you can
I mean,
still
you could have
probably
like stopped
Russia.
Alamali from going to Turkestan. That would have been nice.
Mhm. Yeah, plus, you could have tried at least hoping that Russia doesn't support Sofovitz in, which is valid because they've kind of been at war now for a while. So I think it would have been completely valid doing Urzgen into Turkestan with Yarkan's support.
Yeah.
Definitely, it would have done something at the very least. And Koring Uzgen does
Oh, yeah.
nothing. And as we know, something is better than nothing. Looking at these
Yeah.
other Sofvid units, though, I don't like continuing to core Tbilisi. I would have rather had seen them move to Shapshug, but from the looks of it, it seems like either Russia is throwing to Sofivids or there's just some sort of agreement there to help Sofivids either contest England or just get a good position to finish out this game because Sofids are going to contest
Mhm.
some of these last few centers here. They might even
Yeah.
walk into as far as Moscow if Russia lets them. I don't know if they're going to get that far, but Kharkov and Kochari, they're definitely going to put a little bit of pressure there. Although, Alameda does walk away from there.
Yeah. It'll probably walk back up,
Yeah.
but we'll see.
Further south, we do see the Question Convoy, which is fantastic for them.
Yeah, we were really hoping for that.
It's
Yes.
now there.
It
It's
just makes sense. I don't like Safovitz walking away from Downball and Shore, though.
it's
Oh,
unfortunate.
yeah, why are they going back to Arabian Sea?
I don't know why they're walking out of there instead of trying to press advantage, but I do like that they're getting Riyadh and Muscat, and they do still have units on Mahra and are going to try and push advantage from there. It's not at quite
Mhm.
as much, and honestly, Abyssinia convoy into Tamaha is really unfortunate for
That
them as
convoy's
well.
fun.
That's a fun convoy.
The
I'm curious
fact
to
that
see what it's
Abyssinia
going
is
to do, though. Probably anti-Ottoman, go for Mecca.
I imagine it's probably going to try and assist Ajuran because the two of them, Ajuran has helped them out in the favor in helping them take Red Sea in the first place. I imagine Ajuran is now asking for the help to secure Sana'a, Aden, and Mahra at least a little bit.
Mhm. The fact
Yeah, we'll
that
have to see.
Abyssinia is very likely ending this game with all of their supply centers is hilarious because at one point in the game, I'm pretty sure all that was left was Deborah Burhan.
Yep. It's very
That's
well done by
crazy.
Abyssinia to recover this position. Extremely
Love
well
that
done.
from Abyssinia.
Yeah, this is why you do not give up, especially early game when there's still so much game left.
Absolutely. All right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Focus on Soviets for a second. Sofovids are getting 4 builds here, guaranteed.
5.
Uh, oh yes, 5. You're right.
I count 5.
So
I
we got,
assume that's going to Muscat.
I,
The
I'm,
arrows on these coastal provinces not great sometimes.
yeah, that's just sleep stuff. They're gonna put a lot of those builds into their border against Mughal. They're gonna try and contest a fair amount of the seconds. Yarkland, Kabul, Amindad, I wager. That might be why Goblin Shore is backing up. Try and put better pressure on Amindad in the future. Sorry, Amendabad pronunciations. I think Sofovitz are going to get a fair amount of centers and probably going to end the game plus
Yeah, this is
10,
why
plus
this is
12
why
from
I
where
was
they currently
proposing
are.
that
But
Safovitz keep Muscat open for next year.
mm-hmm.
Because you get 5 builds, but you don't have 5 useful places to build this year.
I think
So
That's
you could have
fair.
just waited for it another year and get yourself positioning into Gulf of Kutch, for example.
indeed. I think Sofovids are the one player, and we've beaten the dead horse with this. I think Sofovids would benefit from going for another year, and I think uh, most people can agree at this point that we're about done at this point. Yes, but there is still
Yeah,
time. Like
Safovitz maybe used. Depends. We'll see what happens next year, like in spring moves. But I think Ute could have also maybe benefited from another year.
Mhm, mhm,
Entirely dependent on if they stab.
mhm. Yeah, but sadly, from the looks of it, that is not coming anytime soon. Maybe once they figure out that it's the final year, things will happen,
Yeah,
but we
like
will
I said
hopefully see.
earlier, they don't know it's final year yet. They find out after fall retreats.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I expect to see a
Yeah.
mad scramble in spring next year.
Right.
I'm really hoping that
Speaking
we
of
see some
which,
coming out quickly. Uh,
Yeah,
yes, continue.
right.
Sorry.
the rest of Asia looks
Speaking
pretty normal.
Speaking of which, is there anything we really need to discuss about now, for the rest of this map,
Uh,
or should we move on to the next one?
I think that there are some.
I mean, Ayutthaya defends.
Ooh.
Ayutthaya does.
Ming clearly doesn't trust Mughals enough, so they use Kunbing to support Holbamo instead of supporting
Mhm.
Marak to Ava,
Dang.
and they use Hanoi to support themselves into Hainan instead of tapping Lanna,
Good job.
Wow.
Good
or
job,
even funnier,
Ayutthaya. At least.
moving to like Fanrang or something.
Mhm.
Good job to
Mhm.
Ayutthaya for being able to hold that. It looked really
Yeah. I
unfortunate for
didn't
them.
mention this earlier, but Ming supported Fokien Strait into Macau instead of Hokkien, and I vehemently disagree with that decision because now you
Yeah.
see this.
Yeah. Just not doing much with Hokkien now.
Yeah,
However, I
like
think for most powers at this point, specific tactics are likely not going to matter too much. And
nope.
we're about 15 minutes from them calling the game, so I would like to move into uh honestly, we can probably just skip winter builds and go straight into spring moves, second to last turn.
Yeah, we
You
can. I'm just gonna look to see if there's anything interesting going on. England supports Poland into Nianis and out of Ouagadougou. Congo walks out of Great Ardra. England snipes Maldives. Guarani still lives.
Mhm.
Ronnie's
Yay, St.
What
duking
Helens.
it
else?
out. All right. I'm going to open up
I
the
think
next
that's
spring
everything.
turn then, yes, and we can analyze some of the results more in turn there
Mhm.
because
Yeah, South America is just
yeah,
whatever it is.
because while there are a few things to shout about and are definitely worth talking about, I think even just looking over at the leaderboard here, we can kind of see how things are looking here. England is doing very well. Yuchishon and Safavids both have very solid lines that they can use to maintain top three positions. And while there are other players as well who are doing very well, you have Sweden and Austria doing very well in Europe, which is very nice for them. Ming is turning things around in their sector and is starting to get that explode. It's just a little too little, too late.
Yeah. Where
Mhm.
do we want to start with this map?
I'm seeing two Yuchishon core orders. Let's just go right there. This is
Oh, and look at all the support hold arrows. Oh my
yeah.
god.
This is what we had
Yeah.
said. Pushing at Spain, sure, you get those centers from Spain and it works out in your favor, but now you just have units that could be doing more productive things like, I don't know, moving against Inuits, which it seems like you may want to be doing in order to get some of those centers. And instead, you're sitting there coring because Lamal, they're sitting there. Pushing it,
Mhm.
pushing that advantage earlier is really what would have allowed you to potentially be a player during these last few turns and maybe even had done something significant against England. And instead, now we see England getting into Fort Detroit instead of Yucha Shown. Like
That's ironic on so many levels.
Yucha Shown, you're the one who's been working on that. You're the one who's the one trying to clean these all up.
Yeah, at least maybe France will be kind enough to support Ute into Ville-Marie, because that's the
Uh,
only thing left.
Maybe I think, especially since it seems like Inuit is Ute and Inuit are still not making agreements to have Ute try and take these centers in order to get up to contesting VSCC level or doing anything productive. I think this is about where Yuchishon is going to stall out. As much as we're being a downer, let's say this. Yuchishon has done fantastically well this game to get to this point and
Mhm.
establish this much of a dominance over the American continent. And while we're giving them a little bit of strife for not further pressuring, it's because we believe had they continued the pressure up, they could have won this game. It's very
yeah,
possible they could
I
have had a very successful game and done very well.
I've done the math. Ute is currently just under 12% behind England right now.
Yeah, and that's easily 3 SCs,
Mhm.
and now you're ahead of England. Oh,
Yeah,
And again, if these
just a
bounces were
stab Inuits.
if these bounces
yeah.
if you didn't arrange these bounces and instead you took Chipewon, you took Satu, you took Chichon, Maybe even you try to take centers like Cree, if you could maybe get France to really help you with that. Start taking Aleuts, which was open for like 2 turns. Push into Denaina with the fleet that you had in Gulf for Alance earlier. Those are those centers you need. At this point, you could maybe even pass England. If England is ending, really fumbles the bag, you could have ended at number 1. Unfortunately, it does not look like you are going to be gaining much more from this position.
Yeah,
Yuchishon, that
assuming
is.
current tactics, assuming current
Right.
tactics, OG Kree to chip away on with Tlicho support. Tsutsina bounces still.
Yeah,
Gross
I was
Ventress moves
about
up.
to say.
You could keep chip away
Yeah,
on. Uh, no,
or
not
I'm pretty
quite. Have
sure.
to backfill
I'm,
OG Kree, I think, but that's whatever.
no, I think
Like
Ute is
fleets
fine
moving
in
up.
that line. I think because if they take Chipe win, then where are they going to come after OG Cree from? They would need to go back to Mischief PE, and yeah, that just looks horrendous because that would be very few um, units attacking these centers. So you end
It's
up
tough.
being able. Yeah, I mean, granted, we are dogging on them
Fleets
a
could have.
little
I think
bit,
the
but
fleets are the bigger problem here.
Yeah, a lot
but
of these fleets are
hey,
just sitting and
yeah.
not doing anything productive. Look at all of these dotted lines.
I think they're too concerned about the Tokugawa death ray, but
It already fired its cannon.
Yeah.
it's fired. It fired its gun at Galapagos.
So,
There's no more
Mhm.
ammo.
nonetheless, again, very well done by Yuchishon. They are definitely locking down a top 3 position in this game and have done very well to make it to that point. I really would have liked to see them push that to get top 1 potentially, but they still have done very well overall.
Yeah, we'll see.
Mhm.
Mhm. Mhm.
Let's go ahead and
Very good turn from England, though, by the looks of things here.
yeah, let's go ahead and swing our way down here. It looks like England is going to make an attempt to. Yeah, they're going to get Belize back from Spain, which is nice, and they've just reclaimed St. Augustine.
Yeah, they're in trouble in North America. Maybe.
Maybe
Actually, it looks fine.
like they
Newfoundland is in trouble, but they get Port Royal back out of it.
yeah, they're going to retake Port
Uh,
Royal here
they're in Fort Detroit. That's probably going to hold.
because they have Seneca right there.
Mhm.
Yes. And if and France can't agree to something, they'll be able to keep Ville Marie.
Indeed. Yeah, England has a
Uh,
fairly solid turn
they
here.
get St. Augustine back.
I wonder. I'm quickly just going to skim over their other stuff here. We haven't touched England over in the Thunderdome too much, but they have actually managed to somewhat recover some areas as well.
Poland stabs. Let's go, Poland.
Finally.
Poland will take Somali back. Beautiful.
Beautiful indeed. It looks like England is going to be. Yeah, England is holding, even convincing Sweden to just try and get some Dutch centers to end out the game. Like, England is doing everything they definitely need to secure number 1. This could be going better
We
for
say
them.
that Iceland could get dotted.
Yeah, Iceland can get dotted. They're losing a few centers here to Mughals force from the look of it, as they lose uh,
They lose Bellari.
yeah, Bellari to a core
They
here.
Mughals helps England take Cochin though at the same time.
Wait,
That's fun.
that's genuinely hilarious though. That is
With
quite
Mughals
funny.
holds in Lakshadweep Sea, sure. Gondwana to
Mhm.
Yeah,
Delhi to deal with
Oh.
yeah,
what is
and
this mess?
Sofovid's getting Russia support even further and going into Ming centers at this point. I could I
What happens here? Yarkand follows this phase. That's hilarious.
genuinely
I love
Can
tactics.
I kind of wish.
can I also?
Go ahead. Sorry.
You can.
No, please, you go.
No, mine's a little off topic, so you go.
I really think Sofovid's done so well in this game. Genuinely. Like, in addition to applying all of this pressure to Russia throughout the entire game, they're ending the game now with Russia actively and openly supporting them to try and get these last few dots that they need in order to secure a top position. Like, they have done
Yeah,
so
I
well in
think
this game
Russia's
to get
gonna
to this
let them
point.
into these SCs here.
I do need to point out, though, Sofovid's no, you're not allowed to drown a unit in the Caspian Sea. Nice try. Like we that's not gonna work. I'm sorry.
I like that they built Fleet Terran, even though it's completely useless because they had no other good builds.
Yeah, but they're making that push that they need to into Mughals and into E position against Ajuran here. It's not quite as much as I would have liked to see that I think that they could have been capable of, but genuinely they're doing everything that they need to in order to secure the top 3 position as well. I think Sof-
Yeah.
I think Sophivids have done very well. I think our top 3 of England, Shoshone, and Sophivids have definitely shown that they deserve to be in the top 3 of this game and have all done very well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
Europe
I
looks
must
like a
also.
mess.
Oh, dude, Europe is always a mess. Let's get that clear right now. But
What is
here,
happening here?
so I wanted to mention this. Do you see the support arrow directed right above Ghent? Well, to
Yeah,
understand where that is coming from, you need to scroll out and go to the tip of South America.
Yep, because
it's
it
from Caracas.
just keeps
Yep.
going all the way there.
Yep. Yeah, this is what I was about to bring up
Yeah.
earlier. Like
England
that
punching air right
support
now, not
order.
being able to take Caracas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
Oh my
really
god, Ghana current. The Netherlands, you're crazy.
I think we could have seen a little
Dude,
bit more out of the
wow.
end of this game here, but I think about wrapping it up. I want to look at Ming and see how they're doing. Um, yeah, Ming is
Uh,
continuing to get Mughal support to help push them in. They're pushing against Ayutthaya. They're making good progress. Like they're gonna take Fan Rong at the end of this year, and they have Mughals taking
Mhm.
Ava. Like it's not a bad turn for these two either. I also do think that Ming has a very strong potential, and if we had seen Ming push in against Ayutthaya just a bit sooner, then maybe we would be talking about them in the top 4 as well. Because Ming's not far from that group either, and they're gonna gain centers at the end of this year. Like they're
Mhm.
or
doing
like
well.
Stabching.
Yeah, just move into Qing any sooner.
Right. And one thing that I was going to ask, do you think that they will go Balmo to Sasaram at the end of the year because they have nothing else better to do with that unit?
I mean, might as well.
I could see them. I could see them
Yeah.
taking Ava for themselves.
They could do that,
Shout out to
or
Chengdu walking into the
Yeah.
supporting unit. That's always fun to see. Not that it had anywhere more efficient to go, but you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, though. Is there anything else in particular that you all wish to discuss about? Because we have about 5 minutes until we get our final map here. I think that we've covered a lot of what we want to be seeing here for the end of this game. I think it's at this point we can really just talk about how we think every power has done and how we think everything's gonna shake out for this final turn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the exact math on the SECs for these 5 center powers versus England, but I think it's impossible for England to drop first here.
I think so.
Just looking at the
Mm-hmm.
board, it's going to be close. I think.
I'd have to pull out the calculator. The thing is, England. I don't think England is growing or losing by much. I don't think Shoshone is growing or losing by much. I do think Safavid is, though. I think Safavid is going to gain quite a number of centers
Yes,
here.
I
How
think
many?
Safavid's.
I don't know how many, but it's a fair amount.
It's going to be tough. We could probably pull up a clean fall map to see like where units ended up. I
That's a
guess
good
to
point. Let
really do the math.
me open that up. Love the pings that we're still getting here.
So unfair. I'm not getting any.
Yeah, they're picking just sports and not
Well,
commentators. It's so sad.
there are a few people pinging commentator, but they don't actually have permissions to do that. So every time they try and
Uh
ping commentator, it doesn't actually get our attention.
tragic.
That's funny.
Which is
Okay.
funny because I'm pretty sure we got pinged by the Ottomans and that one worked.
Well,
Yeah.
I just checked an Ottoman's ping and I saw one for my name, but not. But then a commentator ping that
There
didn't.
was there was one earlier, like a couple hours ago, that pinged commentator.
Ah, interesting.
Uh, one of the Ottomans players plans to do an AER tomorrow at we weren't given a time zone, so who knows?
Mhm.
Fair enough.
Dude, I can't wait for that AAR to happen and it just be all about Abyssinia and how Abyssinia managed to come back against the world.
Indeed. All right, I want to try and count what we think Safavids are going to be capable of doing here. Let's start.
Yeah.
Let's start with the Arabian Peninsula. They have Barha. That's guaranteed. They have 3-on-2. Oh no, that's 3-on-3.
Nope, not guaranteed.
That is not guaranteed. So
It depends on Abyssinia because Safavids did help Abyssinia into Mecca, so we'll see if Abyssinia ever pays the favor and taps like Sana'a or something.
Abyssinia could tap Gulf of Tadura, and that would do it. But
Yes.
I don't know if they're going to be willing to do that. Maybe we'll see.
We'll see.
Considering they just afforded
Safavids
into Mecca, probably not going to grab the hat.
gain Bakhchisarai, gain Kharkov, so that's at least 2.
It is. That's hopeful. A hopeful
Siberian
3.
has some options.
Yeah, we're looking at a hopeful 3 from those. Other units that look possible: the Siberian Tundra.
And then a guess between Kabul and taking back Yarkand, losing Turkestan. Depends on what Shing does.
Right. Considering Russia's helping them out so much with centers, I imagine Siberian Tundra is going to get them a unit.
Yeah, I imagine Siberian Tundra is just going to go for Krasnoyarsk, though.
And then they get. If Russia's helping them, which I think it's fair to assume that they are, then they probably can resecure Yarkland. Can they resecure Yarkland and take Kabul? I don't know if they can do both.
Mughals has a move set that guarantees that they don't. It's just a matter of what happens with Yarkand. Like, if Yarkand moves to Kabul with Delhi support, then it's only Yarkand that falls.
Yeah.
So we'll call that 4. That's 4 guaranteed, though.
It's 3 guaranteed and 1 that isn't lost, I think.
Well, I think Safavids are guaranteed, assuming that Russia's helping them, which it very much seems like it does. I think Safavids are guaranteed Bakhchisarai, Kharkov, Berkhoturye, and then Kabul. Then they lose Yarkand. Yeah, that's only a guaranteed +3. They have a lot of options that may give them more, though, but it's not as clean as they would want. Again, I really wish we would be playing just speed round, like 5-minute turns.
1 more year would be fun.
1 more year, 5-minute turns. Give Safavid the chance to show that they deserve to be number 2, maybe even number 1.
Yeah, I noticed in this splits the build phases were 10 minutes, whereas in past games they've been 5 minutes. So
Right.
that's where a lot of the missing time's gone.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And we were only able to get through 6 years, correct?
We've only done 6 years of
Yes.
play, correct.
Okay. So
Orders
a
have
little
been
bit
locked.
unfortunate there. Yep.
Unfortunate.
Just waiting
How
on
many
the
would
final match.
Sweden need? I don't think Sweden's anywhere close, but I kind of want to do the math.
I don't think Sweden's close
We're on
enough to crack the top
13
3.
out of 28.
Plus, Sweden is losing Arkhangelsk for sure. They're getting back Riga, though. Oh, but they also have Austria.
Gaining Riga, gaining. They lost Warsaw, but they gain Iceland.
Mm-hmm.
Iceland.
They also have.
No one's there.
No, they don't even get Utrecht because Munster just goes in there.
I mean, they're just behind. They're only 2% behind Safavids right now.
Right, but I think Safavid grows a lot here, but Sweden doesn't.
Yeah. What's Sweden gear? Nothing.
All right, we have done the final orders lock. We're going to go ahead and get the map. As soon as the bot fixes... Hey, you know what?
Classic bot.
No.
This is the only bot break that we've had all day. That is a win and a half.
Especially for a blitz game, this is really good.
Absolutely so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do want to mention that earlier, the Mughals especially has been playing a lot of games on the side while doing this blitz match. I know that they did a lot of cookie clicker. They also pinged me in the Ming Poland press channel because they they are good friends, but still, it is crazy. Oh wait, that's why I typed in
Okay.
Ming.
Google hasn't done too
Poland,
bad
not.
this game as well. Like Google can be really hard,
Mhm,
especially early on, but they were able to get England and Portugal to start going at each other's throats, and that allowed them to really stabilize quite a bit here. I do think with some
Mhm.
more time, Sofvid would apply enough pressure that would make them have to force back. But
Yep.
mhm. Yeah, and just to reiterate, Mughals played this Blitz game, played the Poker Nights with the Poland player, played Cookie Clicker at the same time, and was apparently drinking root beer, and probably a few other things too. But
might as well,
they
I
were
guess.
very, yeah, yeah, they
Incredible.
were having the time of their lives.
Pop off. You want to know? There is one power that I do want to mention that we have not given a lot of talk during these last few turns. Pour one out for Mapuche. They were able to stabilize very well against the
Oh,
Aymaran aggression, but you have to stand and wonder what could have been if they were able to get Aymara to back off of them and allow them to get a bit more growth in this region. I don't think it would have been
Yeah.
enough, especially since they completely were not able to develop in Oceania at all. But it's
yeah.
really unfortunate for them. They had a very promising start.
Right. They had a lot of potential there, especially when they fully took Guarani. But yeah, and you're right. After Aymara just turned on them, and especially with Spain, I think that if Spain continued the pressure against Aymara, or even just becoming neutral, then Mapuche wins that interaction. But sadly, Aymara just diverted all of their units south and was able to not just hold Mapuche back, but actually managed to gain some ground, and
Mhm.
that is the unfortunate part.
It really was quite unfortunate to see. Some other. It's good to talk about some other powers who did well here as well. Shane was someone we had written out fairly early, all things considered, and their tactics have been a bit all over the place, but they're stable and surviving. They,
Hmm.
they are not
Middle of
out.
the pack. Ooh, maps.
Maps. All right.
Yep, fall
Oh
maps
my
are
god.
out.
Final map.
Yep.
Let's see how many joke orders we
Who
got, baby.
who and why?
I don't even want to count how many just moved to Galapagos here. And not just that, but all the support orders for Peru Basin
Yep,
into
let's see
Galapagos.
here. Holes, core. Hell, even Sophovid's getting in on the core fun. Might as well. It's the last turn.
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
Russia stabs. Incredible.
No, Russia! Come on! Give it to Sophovid.
Wait,
They so
Russia.
deserve this. They so deserve this. Ah. Oh, fair enough.
Yahoo!
Fair enough. I'm gonna go ahead and move to the clean.
Yeah.
I'm gonna move straight to the clean map. That it has retreats, but it will have the final leaderboard standings on it that we can look at on the
Good idea.
side. And while it's unfortunate here that a few of these did not end up playing out to quite the size that we thought they would have, Sophovid's not quite as high as we would have want. Uh, it's almost identical to the map that was leaderboard as it was last year. That's really unfortunate.
How is that possible? England gained
Mhm.
4.
I mean,
No one else gained anything.
England held all of the units that they took in North America and in Caribbean. I think I think
Mhm.
that's the real takeaway at the very end of this game here. Let's go back a few hours ago where I said I believe that England is just very clearly the strongest power at the start of the game.
England got Christiania. Hold on.
No. No. Why? Why?
Sweden, you're throwing.
In what world?
All right,
Mm,
we're laughing about it and having a
whatever.
good time because it is the end of the game here. I imagine that
Mhm.
I imagine that a fair amount of these moves, like you all saw the map, a lot of these moves are just joke moves. I think at
Right.
the end of the day, that's
Don't
why the
worry,
game ended when
a
it
lot of
did.
arrows to Madrid, a lot of arrows to Galapagos.
Mm-hmm.
Guarani lives. Let's go.
Ronnie on one. Congo ended up
They
dying
they
at the end
live
of the
in
game.
Benguela.
No, Congo.
Is Congo dead?
Congo died right
Congo,
at the
no,
end. That's
yes,
so
Congo's dead.
unfortunate.
Oh,
Tragic.
no.
Rest in peace, Congo.
Yeah. But Guarani survives. That's a big part.
Saint Helena
Yeah.
just. That's not even Saint Helena. That's there in Benguela.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Pinguella.
Pop off.
Wait, quite the journey, but respectable.
Yeah. I think a lot of these players did very well and have very notable things to be proud of. Abyssinia came back from basically nothing and did very well. It took them a while, but Mughals
Oh,
has climbed. Mughals and Ming have both made very steady, very solid progress within their regions.
yeah.
They just needed more time or to act with a bit more haste.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, England just wins guesses everywhere.
Hit
They lose some guesses, but they win a ton of them.
England. England have just put their hold on the. They put their foot on the game and just said, "Yeah, this is fine," and just wrote it out for what was left.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
really
they take St. Louis because they're the only players that didn't fall for the Indikaru core.
mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
obviously they sniped Christiania somehow.
Yeah, they managed to sneak their way into a lot of
What
gods right
else?
at the
Do they
end.
get into Raja? They do get into Raja. Incredible.
Oh,
I'm just really
just
enjoying the
works.
fact that Austria has officially cored Marseille. It is theirs now. Um, who
Cause
said
why
that it
not?
was French? Because yeah, I'm only seeing an Austrian core there. I don't know what you're talking about.
You know what? You know who I'm gonna give some props to? I'm gonna give some props to Ottomans. Austria has been a very dominant power. They finished top 5 in the game. Safavids have been a very dominant power. They finished top 3 in the game. And while they struggled and basically just let Abyssinia come back from what should have been a dead position, they managed to hold out in their European position quite well. And I think that because that they held out very well, they denied Austria a lot of the points they needed. They denied Safavids a few of the points that they needed. I think they did very well to clean up at the end of the game, and I'm going to give them a few props for that.
Yeah.
That is
Abyssinia
fair.
is higher on the board, both SD wise and VSCC wise, than the Ottomans.
That's funny.
That
That's
After a
funny.
that
+1
is
year one.
crazy. That is
Good job,
crazy. Oh,
Abyssinia.
Pop off.
wow. Dude, when people ask me, why don't I just give up here, that I'm not going anywhere, I'm gonna direct them to this game and this Abyssinia because they managed to claw back from one of the worst positions that
Absolutely.
honestly looked dead. We were all saying that we don't know how they're gonna come back here, that we don't know how they're gonna defend this. But look at this, they beat Ottomans. They won.
Pop
Yeah.
off.
And a lot of that has to do with Abyssinian Ajuran press for sure.
Mhm.
Oh, definitely, definitely. How they managed to convince Ajuran to not move in on them here. Clearly, Saidama was just begging to be moved into by Marig army, but they convinced them not to, and it's incredible, incredible.
Yeah, I think that they did very well in order to make sure that they could survive from their position, and they deserve a ton of props for that. Okay, before
Mhm.
we get into finality of everything, I'm going to go ahead and open up the final map so we don't have the retreat arrows on here while we go through the final things. And it looks like they're going to be letting the players into the commentary booth at this point to end the game. So
Okay.
while they're going to start joining in here in a moment, really must commend all of these players. I do think it's a little
Mhm.
unfortunate
Yeah.
that we ended after 6 years, though. I will say, of all the Blitz games that I've seen that had to end early, I think this one's about set. Like, I think this is. There were previous Blitz games where I really wanted to see it go on further. Blitz 2, I wanted to see the chaos go on further. Let's be real. But I think this one.
I didn't.
Mhm.
As
I
a
think.
player in Blitz 2, I did not want that game to continue.
I think.
Dude, I. Here you go.
Please go ahead.
Um, I was going to say that as Ming, I don't know what I would have wanted because I was under pressure from all sides and I just relieved a lot of pressure with the Ching there. So as an A2 play or as a Blitz 2 player, I still don't know what I would have wanted. Would I want the pain to be over sooner or would I want the pain to continue and dread on in that match?
Yeah, as the Inuit in Blitz 2, death to England France alliances. That is all.
Fair.
We are getting the players in now. Hello, players.
Yep, they're all running in.
Greetings.
Hello, everybody. Welcome on in. Come in, come in. We're gonna be wrapping up the last little bits of this game. We're gonna drag a few players up to do some talks if you all are interested in doing talks. We generally, though, from the commentary booth, we're gonna want to give a little bit of a wrap up of how everything went for us and just kind of give a bit of a summary of the game here. Really,
Yeah.
really fun game.
Where are Flare and Salt first? They were England, right?
Indeed. Before we start bringing it up, I do want to just really quickly commend all of the players who have been a part of this game. I think at least this, I wasn't here for Blitz 3. I was unable to be here, but of all the other Blitz games that I've seen, I think this was a very solid showing from genuinely just about everyone. I think most players here did a very fantastic job. There are so many things that I could commend everyone on doing the small things for. Shout out to Abyssinia for not being dead. You are above Ottomans at the end of this game. Pop off. Absolutely
yeah, that
pop
is
off.
Really amazing there. So nice.
It's really fun.
All right.
It's really fun to see as well some successful powers. Mapuche sweep, like we were believing in the Mapuche sweep for so long there. You did such a great job. The Colonial Thunderdome was super funny to check in on the entire game. And ultimately, though, I do believe we have to give our congratulations to our winners of this game, those being the combo of Salt and Flare on England. If either of you wish to talk, then we can bring you up and we can discuss a little bit about your play if you'd like.
I know Salt volunteered, and yeah, Flare is also volunteering, so let's bring one of them up, see what they have to say.
I
Get them
will.
both.
Yep, I'll get them both then here.
Hello. It was a really fun game. Had fun with everyone.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Did not believe in the England win for like the first 2 years, and then we just started winning, and it never stopped winning for us.
Really, I think that, and well, Sports Who Zombie wasn't here. I think Duncan brought me up. We thought you were in a very solid position there. You had France leading along, and whenever you were able to push in against Netherlands as well, we thought you were doing very well right from the get go.
So at least for my end, it was like nonstop panic. I think we had two very unfortunate misorders at the start. I know Flair had misordered in Madurai at the beginning in fall 01.
Saw.
That one was very
and then
unfortunate.
in spring, and then in spring 02, I lost Belize because I misordered to Mexico City instead of Yucatan. So that was unfortunate too. And then we get the +0 stab on France, which also did not go well for us.
Yeah.
So it was like nonstop panic. Like Dutch were really strong; they doubled year one. So I was worried about them and France collaborating to stab us, especially when we stabbed France and it didn't go very well for us. And we got France to peace out with us. I think that's what kind of brought our game to where it is now. That alliance.
So I actually just want to talk about it a bit about India because it was a roller coaster this game, and I just like to thank both Luxon and Sarcastic Scribe, but even more so Sarft for making this game amazingly funny. So as I did misorder the first year, going back to Madras instead of taking Madurai, of course, and but long term I think it was kind of good because um, when I did so, Portugal turned against me, but I managed to get Mughal on my side due to that. And me and Sarf had this very funny relationship all game. But due to that, basically I had an excuse to actually attack Portugal, which I think long term was good, even though India later collapsed due to some very good playing from Sarft and some pretty bad moves from me. But India is still alive, so I'm happy.
Absolutely. And you all were holding out very
Yeah.
well. We were a little concerned. End of year 4 is around. We were saying that we thought you could keep it
Yeah.
out and climb to the top, but there were some areas that we were worried about, particularly in North America. We were wondering if Shown was going to start trying to roll you over, roll past France into you. But it ended up working out for you. You even managed to keep the home miles, which were a little dicey for a second there.
Yeah, they sure were. We had a season where the defensive moves really worked out. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
Shoshone is what we call a France problem and not a me problem.
Yeah, exactly. So we were pretty fine with Yute steamrolling. We were never really worried. We realized that they would never reach us in time to actually hurt us.
Yeah, the thought process there was that like if this was a normal game, I would keep the England France alliance going to stop Shoshone because Shoshone probably overtakes us. I think if this were a normal game, but with only like 3 years left, they're gonna gobble up France's dots before they actually threaten any of our cores. So I was kind of happy to just sit back and let Shoshone do whatever they wanted.
Absolutely. We were even saying in the chat, we thought it was very possible Shoshone would have overtaken you at the end anyways, had things
Yeah.
gone slightly differently.
Really super weird.
And for that matter,
Yeah.
I think we're gonna go ahead and bring them up. Would you like to come up and talk, Shoshone? You are welcome to if you'd like. Sorry, don't mean to run off y'all, but I would like to hear from quite a few players because there are quite a few people that I think did very well, and I would love to hear from them at the end of this game chat.
It seems like
You has said yes in chat
Yeah.
here.
All right,
I'm unfamiliar with Discord stages, so
all good.
There we are.
Got it from here. Ultimate victory. Welcome on in. Second place is Shoshone. Congratulations.
I apologize if my audio is being strange. I am like fighting my Discord to get it to work.
You're all good.
Yep.
sounds all right.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I was not expecting to do this well, honestly. Like by the start of the last year, I didn't think I was gonna overtake England. There was a point where I did, but just because it didn't look like anyone was really like going hard against them. However, it was very fun to tell everyone, hey, we've got to do this anti-England coalition that consists of me walking into Spain's center.
Yeah, it worked out very well for you. You just absolutely cleaned up. Athabasca ended up turning and spending a lot of attention towards Inuit. You cleaned up there very nicely. Spain spent a lot of time down south focusing on the Caribbean and Aymara, and you were able to just push in and clean in very nicely. You did a very good job at timing your moves very well to make sure that you were always the benefactor at cleaning up behind everyone else. And very well done job by that.
Yeah, my one mistake. I should have stabbed Inuit at the very end so he couldn't stab me and I'd have to retreat. But
We were
like,
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Or we were definitely thinking about that kind of thing towards the end. You'll probably see that in the VOD, but and you did have some opportunities there, but you still did really well. So don't cut yourself down for that. I mean, look at you. You are basically the sole owner of the Americas.
My logic on stabbing Inuit there was like I would at most have gotten like if I did a stab final year, I'd have gotten like one and a guess for a second dot unless everything went perfectly for me, which like and I was like, we've been great allies the whole game. Like, I'll take the risk of losing one dot. Like, because I felt pretty secure in my position. If this were if this were a game that was going to go a little further, I probably actually still wouldn't have gone hard on Inuit. I'd probably have started going into NPO or something, just because I feel like that is an alliance where you can do the thing where Inuit gradually feeds you like one or two centers, and then I could actually fight England.
Mm-hmm.
But Very, very good game. Though in North America, I think the thing that my opinion of the most important thing in North America the whole damn game was the Athapascan army in Algonquin, because that consumed so many French units for so long.
There was a lot of distraction
Mhm.
going over there. France immediately going, I'm so tilted, I hate that army.
Both France players immediately visceral reaction
Yeah.
to Army Algonquin.
Well, not only Army Algonquin staying on the board as Atha let me and Inuit walk into their centers. Like, admittedly, we didn't tell them they were going to keep a center, but like, no.
Mhm.
It worked out.
But yeah, it was a great time playing this. A great time working with the people I worked with. I wish France had been willing to turn on the EF earlier. I think that could have seen a very different game. But of course, I wish that, because that would be very good for me.
Fair
But yeah,
enough.
I will shut up now.
No, it is all good. We want to hear from everyone because there are a lot of things that everyone did so well this game. Genuinely, I think everyone has something to be very proud of how this game went for them. You all did some very good moves here. There is one other player that I definitely want to make sure we discuss with before getting too far into the closing thoughts, though. I think there is one player on here that, had there been another year, maybe even another 2 years, maybe had been the board top here, would Safavid like to come up and give their closing thoughts for the end of the game and talk if they would like?
Stop it. I was terrified of you overtaking me in the last year, but there wasn't that much I could do. So good job.
We thought it was going to happen. We were
I
totally
thought it was going to happen too.
We were thinking that the Russian player was going to allow Safavid to walk in, and Safavid would end up with 1 or 2 more of the dots. But unfortunately, they ended up just 1 short, which is really quite unfortunate. However, a 3rd place is still very respectable for how they ended up going.
Yeah, great job.
Hello, thank you.
Absolutely.
Welcome.
You did a really good job this game. If you want to just kind of discuss how you were thinking and how you think the game went for you.
So I came in with the plan that I was going to go through Mughals or Arabia, and then I didn't do that. So that was something. But I felt like I just had a bunch of really good opportunities to me open up repeatedly in Russia and Ottomans, and that was the majority of my game.
It went very well for you. You were able to break that triple that exists between Bacharasi, Tbilisi, and Derbent. You were able to break that up and get into those centers very early on. That was what, year 2? You were able to break that stalemate. That stalemate usually lasts very many years throughout the game. Being able to break into that.
The worst part is I could have broke through it year 1, but I didn't take the support.
We actually had a very long discussion about that. How everyone is immediately ready to offer the support to break that triple, but actually making the move to break that triple is a lot more of an effort. And you did a good job of pushing in and closing in that gap in order to get a very strong lead against the Russians early.
Thanks.
Yeah, is there anything you really wanted to talk about in terms of your other fronts that were really exciting, especially during some parts of the game?
I'm trying to think. I think the main thing was mostly that I just had to keep on putting out units because there was a lot of fronts where it was constantly on the verge of not going well, but I just constantly had enough tempo to just supply enough units to stabilize it. So, I mean, I really think if I had been stopped for a year, stuff was going to very quickly come crashing down on me.
Well, that's a good mentality to have, especially in a blitz game. Being able to apply that pressure and just keep the pressure on, turn that tempo into advantage very quickly, it works in your favor. Abyssinia says, thank you for finally attacking the Ottomans.
Oh, I made so many promises to attack people all the time. I was promising to attack Mughals since year 1. I was promising to attack Ottomans since year 2. I was promising to attack Russia year 1. I don't think I actually followed through on most of them until much later than people actually wanted.
You saying maybe you would have gotten ahead of me if you weren't doing so well on poker. Worth mentioning, by the way, there were a couple of players that were paying about bringing this all up. Yes, we are aware that a fair amount of you were playing side games throughout. Mad respect for those of you who did so, by the way. Very funny.
I won the poker and the putt party. That's what's a real win.
I think there are definitely some other,
Especially the putt party.
especially the putt party. We could definitely spend here talking for another like 30, 45 minutes discussing the end of the game here. But I definitely think that a fair amount of you are about diplomacy out, so we're going to wrap up and end the commentary here and get everything finished up here. Again, so
Before
many.
we do,
Yes, go ahead.
sorry, I really want to hear from Russia though, because Russia had such a interesting game, just always back and forth, not just on the West Coast, but on the East Coast as well. So if they are in the chat, I would love to just get their opinion on it.
Of course. If Russia is interested in coming up and speaking about it, they are welcome to.
I do not think Russia is here.
I'm not
It
seeing them
seems
in the
like
call.
they're not
That's
here.
unfortunate.
It's Maseran,
Ah.
right?
Yes.
They
it?
are,
Oh.
but yeah.
Yes,
I
you are
think
welcome
R
to
is
come on
stage
up.
if they want to talk.
Yep, Mouser, and if you want to come up on the stage, we would love to hear from you.
All right, you're good to go. You are just muted at the moment.
Okay. Oh, whoops. I have to unmute as well. Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, thanks for the game.
Well-
It was a rough one. Probably my roughest game of diplomacy like ever, I think. It was tough. I counted after the game and I got supported by another power 3 times during the entire game. So it was a rough one.
Mhm. Yeah, one thing that I was really curious about, what made you decide to go all in on Europe? Because you put a lot of fleets there early on, but I was really curious what your mindset was going on there.
Yeah, I felt like in this blitz games in general, you need to like tempo is so important. So you need to go get out there swinging year one, like preferably, because you need to grow really fast if you want to go, if you want to end up having a lot of dots. So, and I wasn't entirely sure what was. I subbed in at the last minute, and I haven't looked at the new Russia map, so it was very stressful. And at times I felt like I needed a second person in Russia because there's quite a lot of press, at least the first few years, because you need to talk with all your neighbors, right, and all your neighbors' neighbors, preferably. But I just decided to send it because, well, I wasn't sure who got Riga, which is kind of big thing, and I wasn't. It felt like either Poland nor Sweden was really feeling ready to attack the other. So I felt like if I commit, it's not preferably the best move, right? But then at least there's a chance that Sweden will just join in on the attack. And the alternative was just sitting and doing nothing really. But it played out very poorly for me in general. Also, like shout out to the triple in Asia. Like Qing, Ming, and Tokugawa stayed together all game, and I talked with them not that much because I had a lot of press to do, but nothing could really be done, and I just slowly got grinded down by these three, and it felt like they never had any issues working together. So good job to them.
Indeed, there was a fair amount of a trust round going on there. It paid out fairly well. I was wondering, there were a few points where I was wondering if it was going to break up, but for the most part, y'all stayed together fairly well, and hey, all three of you did do quite well. What was that Ming
Yeah.
6, Qing 9, Goku 10? Yeah, top 10 for all three of you.
Yeah, it was nice.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, my game was very interesting, but like once you start doing pool as Russia, it's just so easy for people to jump in because there's so many fronts that needs to be like so many holes that need to get plugged up with units, and if you can't put them there, then it's kind of bad. Yeah, there's quite a lot of strong people as well in these lobbies, so it can be tough. I don't know if there's anything particularly you want to ask about.
No, I think at the end of the day, I think it was a tricky position you were in. Like you said, if that was your first time ever even looking at the new map and how that impacts Russia's play, like you did a solid job at analyzing your position and trying to make your best of the situation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you. It's these blitz games is really tricky and wild at the time, so it's funny. I just think it's a little bit unfortunate they end so fast because some alliances don't break up just because of the time factor, but
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun to play out at least.
From an admin side, just about like the length of the Blitz games, because that is something we would like to improve down the line. Just having like, what did we play, 6 years? It's not really enough
Yeah,
for
yeah.
the game to develop, as you said. And we are working on ways to possibly like make us able to have shorter turns in Blitz, including like an actual UI for entering orders, which should help out a lot.
it would be very interesting.
We have, yeah, but we have also considered 2 days Blitz games, but I don't know if that will be happening.
Yeah, some people would like that. I think I could manage some days at least, but it's for a lot of people it will be tough.
Yeah, I think it would be super doable, considering that we had thrice as many people as we needed for this game. We
Yeah.
had close to 90 players signing up for this game. So
Nice.
we could probably try doing a 2-day Blitz game someday.
It could also, there's like a lot of crazy variants where you can just do like, I don't know, press only during like builds, and then it's just gunboating during the year, and then you can talk a little bit for like 20 minutes during the winter, and then nothing during the whole move phase and retreats. It would also be crazy.
That is funny.
Chaos option.
I do want to mention while we're talking admin sides, can we just give a round of applause to the bot devs? We had one singular delay to bot issues, and that's it. Round of applause for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not to mention that was at the end of the game.
It was actually amazing. Just seeing the bots actually just doing this well.
And it wasn't even like the bot dying. Like the bot didn't get restarted at all today.
Yeah,
it was just slow.
Was it the last turn?
Ago, we managed...
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, last phase.
A couple of weeks ago, we managed to fix the crash issue. So now it only restarts when we ask it to, which is awesome. Or when we tried to adjudicate the Fog of War games before the bot was ready for it. But in general, the bot is doing really well, and it's getting better and better each day, and the developers are honestly just amazing.
Yeah, and that is really glad to hear. We are very happy with this bot doing so well, and I'm sure everyone is so happy that it exists because it allows us to have as many games going as we currently do.
Yeah.
Because I don't think people realize just how long it takes to hand adjudicate some of these maps, and it literally wouldn't be possible to run Blitz without the bot. So
No.
It's amazing.
When I hosted games during Alpha 1, one adjudication took me 4 hours. Which
there's just not enough time in the day to commit to that.
Yeah. So, but there was a lot of a charm to doing like manual adjudication. I like it. It's very calming to me. But also like just have streaming adjudication and having people chat along is very fun. So I missed that part, but the bot is really the core of what makes Imperial diplomacy in its current shape possible. So yeah.
Indeed. All right. I imagine there's going to be a fair amount of people wanting to talk about the game after the game is done. However, I am going to go ahead and get the recording to a stopping point here because if I have too much more footage, I will not have space for it on my computer. So I'm going to give a couple of thank yous. First of all, a thank you to every single player who is here and was a part of the game. Again, these people have been playing diplomacy for 9 hours total with a small quick break, and that's it. A huge thank you to everyone who is handling the administrative side of the things, our GM Hobbit, all of our angels, and everyone else who has contributed to the Discord side and just making sure that everything is running frequently and going well. Thank you to everyone who is joining in on the commentary booth and helping get everything set up and making this an interesting VOD. I can go ahead and say, hopefully, we should have the full VOD put up somewhere, I want to say before the end of the weekend, but we can't be sure. There was a technical issue right before the break. Well, it actually was during the break, to be fair. We were commentating during the entire break, just so you all are aware. There was unfortunately a technical issue at one point, so there's going to need to be a little bit of admin on that side to get things cleaned up and put away in that side, but that is something that we will handle. Thank you to everyone for being a part and making this interesting, and I do hope everyone had a fantastic game. That being said, go do something else. Have a good evening, have a good night, brush your teeth, go to bed.
Please don't crash the bot while all the games catch up on adjudication.
Good game, everyone.
Good
It was
games.
really fun.
And everybody, the
Yes.
recording is stopped.